There are places on this planet that refuse to give up their secrets. Stone cities carved with impossible precision, artifacts that predate the civilizations capable of making them, patterns etched across continents that seem to whisper of knowledge long forgotten. For centuries, we've told ourselves that history is a straight line, a slow march from primitive to advanced. But what if that line is broken? What if entire chapters of our past were erased, buried beneath time itself? From the desert sands of Egypt to the frozen plains of Siberia, from megaliths that defy modern engineering to relics that seem to mock the timeline of human invention, these are not myths. They are real, tangible puzzles that shouldn't exist. And yet they do. Perhaps we've barely begun to understand who we are, or who came before us. So sit back, open your mind, and let's journey into the shadows of history, where the impossible becomes real, and every answer only leads to more questions. In the dry river plains of what was once the Indus Valley, the ruins of Harappa lie silent, an echo of one of the world's earliest and most enigmatic civilizations. Weathered bricks and fractured pottery litter the ground, each fragment a whisper from a culture that flourished over 4,000 years ago. Yet, among the countless relics unearthed here, few have captivated historians and linguists as profoundly as the small, carved stones known as the Harappan seals. Barely 2 inches across, these seals are miniature masterpieces. Crafted from steatite, a soft stone that hardens when fired, they often depict animals, bulls, elephants, unicorn-like creatures, and sometimes human figures in postures of ritual or meditation. But it is not the artwork that has sparked the greatest curiosity. It is the symbols, the tiny, precise markings etched above or beside the figures, that have defied every attempt at translation. These are the Indus glyphs, a script so compact and consistent that it suggests language, yet so alien in structure that no one can say what it means. Over 4,000 distinct inscriptions have been found across Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira, and other sites of the Indus Valley civilization. Each bears between 5 and 20 signs, short, controlled, deliberate. No long texts, no sprawling tablets like those of Mesopotamia or Egypt. Only concise clusters of signs, as if the people who used them encoded meaning in miniature, compressing complex ideas into the space of a fingernail. The seals themselves were likely used for trade or administration, stamped into wet clay to mark ownership, identity, or authenticity. Yet the brevity of the inscriptions raises a haunting question. Were these simple identifiers, or fragments of something far deeper? A lost language, perhaps, or a symbolic system that communicated ideas rather than words? The earliest excavators of the Indus sites in the 1920s believed they had found evidence of a literate civilization, one whose script might one day be deciphered, much like the Egyptian hieroglyphs or Sumerian cuneiform. But nearly a century later, the script remains silent. Despite advances in linguistics, computing, and pattern analysis, not a single sign has been securely decoded. Some scholars argue that the inscriptions are not writing at all. According to this view, the glyphs represent a series of religious or political symbols, a kind of proto-script used for identity and ritual, but not for spoken language. Others, however, see clear evidence of structure and repetition. The frequency of certain signs, their ordered placement, even their combinations suggest grammar, a logic that hints at meaning. But meaning in what tongue? No bilingual inscription, no Rosetta Stone of the Indus, has ever been found. The civilization's language, if it existed in spoken form, has left no descendants we can trace with certainty. Some researchers connect it to early forms of Dravidian languages, still spoken in southern India today. Others point to lost linguistic families that may have vanished along with the civilization itself, erased by time, conquest, or migration. And then there are the outliers, the the theories that drift at the edges of academic consensus. A few independent researchers have proposed that the signs encode not language but numbers, representing an early accounting system. Others suggest the script might encode astronomical or calendrical data, recording the movements of stars or the cycles of the moon. A more speculative school of thought even hints at influences beyond the subcontinent, connections to Mesopotamian symbols, Sumerian trade routes, or shared iconography that predated known history. There are also intriguing coincidences. Some seals bear motifs that echo symbols found in distant places. A horned deity in a yogic pose, reminiscent of later Hindu imagery. A tree surrounded by animals, evoking ancient fertility cults. Are these mere parallels, or do they reveal a continuity of spiritual and artistic thought stretching back to the dawn of civilization itself? The deeper one looks, the more the mystery expands. The Harappans built cities with astonishing precision, straight streets, advanced drainage systems, standardized weights and measures. They traded across vast distances, from the Arabian Gulf to the plains of Mesopotamia. They mastered craft, metallurgy, and urban design. And yet, in the heart of this complexity, lies a silence, an undeciphered code that conceals their thoughts, their beliefs, their very identity. How could a civilization so advanced leave behind no readable record of its words? Some archaeologists believe the answer lies in impermanence. Perhaps their texts were written not on stone or clay, but on palm leaves, wood, or cloth, materials that long ago turned to dust. The seals, then, might be the surviving fragments of a far greater system, one we can no longer reconstruct. Others suggest that the script was intentionally secret, a sacred language reserved for priests or elites, never meant for public use. If so, its brevity and obscurity might not be a flaw, but a feature, a way of preserving knowledge through symbols understood only by the initiated. Each seal discovered offers a momentary glimpse into that lost world, but never the full picture. A bull stares out from the past, horns curved in quiet defiance. Beneath it, 5 marks: a fish, a trident, a grid, 2 parallel lines. What did they mean to the one who carved them? A name? A prayer? A warning? We may never know. Yet the mystery endures, precise, deliberate, and unbroken, just as it was when the last Harappan artisan pressed his seal into wet clay and set it aside to dry. Thousands of years later, those same symbols still whisper from beneath the earth, their message locked behind a veil of time. And as we hold them up to the light, studying their edges and counting their signs, one question lingers quietly in the dust of the Indus plains. What knowledge did the Harappans leave behind? And why has it chosen not to speak? From the silent plains of the Indus Valley, we journey northeast, across deserts, rivers, and seas, to the rolling hills of the Korean peninsula. Here, in the ancient city of Gyeongju, another civilization once thrived in quiet splendor, the kingdom of Silla. For nearly 1,000 years, the Silla people ruled this land, transforming it into one of the most refined and enigmatic cultures of early East Asia. But it was not until the discovery of the great burial mounds, the tumuli, that the full extent of their artistry and mystery came to light. Inside these grassy hills, archaeologists uncovered treasures unlike anything seen before. Delicate crowns made of pure gold, filigree ornaments so intricate they seemed woven from sunlight, and belts, shimmering with hundreds of tiny golden plaques, pendants, and charms. Among these wonders, one object stands apart: the Silla gold belt. It appears at first to be a simple adornment, a royal accessory worn by kings or queens. But upon closer inspection, it becomes something far stranger. an object layered with symbolism, craftsmanship, and unexplained purpose. Each Silla gold belt consists of a wide central band from which hang dozens of pendants and ornaments, miniature tools, tiny knives, curved hooks, keys, and delicate leaves. Some are purely decorative. Others seem to carry meaning, echoes of ritual or myth frozen in metal. Crafted from nearly pure gold, they gleam with an otherworldly light even after centuries underground. Archaeologists have found several of these belts, most famously in the royal tombs of Cheonmachong and Hwangnamdaichong in Gyeongju. Each was buried with care, wrapped around the waist of the deceased ruler, their body surrounded by offerings of jade, glass, and bronze. But what exactly did these belts signify? The conventional explanation is regal symbolism, a marker of status and divine authority. Gold, after all, was rare and sacred, a material associated with the sun and the heavens. In Silla belief, kings were seen as intermediaries between the human and the celestial. The belts, shimmering with sunlight, may have served as visible proof of this divine connection. Yet, certain details don't quite fit the mold of simple royal ornamentation. Why, for instance, would a ceremonial belt include miniature tools? Scissors, tweezers, small knives, and pouches, crafted in gold. Were they purely symbolic, representing the ruler's ability to provide, protect, or create? Or could they have been ritual instruments, echoing functions we no longer understand? The Silla left few written records from this period, and their language, like their intentions, remains partly hidden behind the veil of time. Without texts to guide interpretation, each artifact becomes a riddle, a physical sentence in a language long forgotten. Some historians see the belts as a continuation of shamanistic traditions that predated Silla's unification under Buddhism. In this reading, the gold ornaments were more than decoration. They were tools of power, mediating between the spiritual and earthly realms. The jingling pendants, when worn, might have produced a sound meant to repel malevolent spirits or summon divine protection. Others notice the uncanny parallels between Silla regalia and artifacts from regions far beyond the Korean peninsula. The tree-shaped crowns, with their branching forms, resemble Scythian and Siberian designs. The fine gold work, crafted using techniques like granulation and filigree, mirrors methods found in Central Asia, and even as far as the ancient Persian world. Could the Silla gold workers have inherited their skills from distant travelers along the Silk Road? The idea is not as far-fetched as it may seem. Gyeongju was once the eastern terminus of vast trade networks stretching across Eurasia. Silk, glass, and gemstones have been found in Silla tombs, materials that clearly originated from the West. The craftsmanship of the gold belts might therefore carry the faint fingerprint of a shared human tradition, passed hand to hand across continents. And yet, there remains something uniquely Silla about these creations, something that resists being traced or categorized. The purity of the gold, for one, is astonishing. Analyses show that some Silla ornaments were made from nearly 100% refined gold, an achievement that would have required advanced metallurgical skill for the time. How such purity was achieved remains uncertain. Equally mysterious is the absence of evidence for large-scale gold mining in the region during that period. Where did all this gold come from? Was it locally sourced, or imported through distant trade? And if imported, what did Silla offer in return? Even more enigmatic is the symbolic consistency across Silla tombs. The gold belts, crowns, and ornaments all repeat motifs of trees, antlers, and celestial forms. These symbols suggest a worldview deeply intertwined with nature and the cosmos, a belief system that may have linked the king's physical adornments to the order of the universe itself. In the quiet chambers of the royal tombs, the belts lie still, their pendants frozen mid-motion, as though waiting to be lifted once more into the light. Each piece seems to whisper of ritual, identity, and transcendence, but in a language we can only glimpse through form and design. Some scholars have proposed that the belts represented the cosmic axis, a connection between heaven, earth, and the underworld. The pendants, dangling from the central band, might have symbolized the many paths between these realms, their golden shimmer embodying spiritual energy. Others take a more practical view. Perhaps the belts were ceremonial uniforms, worn by kings and queens during state rituals or processions. Their purpose, then, was political, a dazzling assertion of divine legitimacy in a world where religion and rule were inseparable. Still, a few voices outside the mainstream suggest stranger possibilities, whispers of ancient knowledge lost to history. They point to the recurring tree and antler motifs as evidence of shared Eurasian shamanic roots, or even to the idea that these golden adornments encoded astronomical knowledge, representations of constellations, solar cycles, or cosmic balance. It's impossible to know how much truth lies in these theories. The Silla left behind no texts explaining their symbolism, no inscriptions clarifying their beliefs. What remains are the objects themselves, mute, radiant, and hauntingly precise. Under museum lights, the gold belts gleam as they once did in the royal courts of Gyeongju, their surfaces reflecting both artistry and enigma. Visitors gaze at them, struck by their beauty, but it is the silence surrounding them that lingers longest. Were these simply ornaments of power, or instruments of something greater, tools of a forgotten science, a lost spirituality, or a code we no longer understand? The answers lie buried somewhere between history and myth, glittering beneath the soil of Korea's ancient hills. And as the light fades over Gyeongju's tumuli, the question remains, quietly, insistently, what secrets did the Silla kings carry to their graves, and how much of their golden world still lies hidden beneath the earth? From the golden hills of ancient Korea we travel west, across oceans and continents, to the heart of West Africa. Here, among the rolling plateaus of central Nigeria, lies a region once home to one of Africa's oldest and most enigmatic cultures, the Nok civilization. The air is warm, the soil a deep rust red. Beneath it, time has hidden 1,000 years of history. And from that earth, archaeologists have uncovered something extraordinary. Fragments of terracotta sculptures, sculpted faces and forms that gaze at us from the dawn of African art. The Nok people lived more than 2.5 millennia ago, from around 1500 BCE to 500 CE, long before the rise of most West African kingdoms, long before written records appeared on this land. Yet the sophistication of their terracotta figures suggests a society far from primitive. Their creations are striking: elongated heads, intricate hairstyles, piercing eyes, expressions that seem both human and divine. Each piece bears an uncanny sense of realism, a presence that feels deliberate, intentional. But it is not the artistry alone that has captured the attention of researchers. Hidden beneath the beauty of these ancient works are subtle, almost invisible clues, marks that shouldn't exist, at least not in the way they do. These are the production marks, small, repeated impressions, scratches, or symbols found on certain Nok terracottas. They are neither decorative nor random. Some appear on the inner surfaces of the sculptures, unseen to anyone unless the piece was broken. Others seem to follow patterns, clustered in ways that suggest organization or communication. For decades, these marks were dismissed as incidental, perhaps the fingerprints of ancient sculptors or the result of tools pressed into wet clay. But as more fragments were unearthed and cataloged, a more intriguing picture began to emerge. Certain marks appeared again and again across different sites, even hundreds of kilometers apart. Repeated motifs, parallel lines, crosses, punctures, and impressions that resemble coded symbols. In a few cases, two separate sculptures, found in different locations, bore identical markings in identical positions, as if made by the same hand, or according to the same system. What could this mean? The most straightforward explanation is workshop identification. The Nok people, it seems, had organized centers of craft, early workshops where specialists created terracotta figures, possibly under commission from local elites or spiritual leaders. The marks in this interpretation served as signatures or workshop codes, used to identify which artisan or group produced each piece. It's a plausible idea, one that fits with the archaeological evidence. Excavations have revealed clay furnaces, kilns, and traces of production areas where sculptural fragments and tools were found in abundance. The Nok were not casual artisans. They were masters of fired clay, capable of controlled temperatures and uniform designs. But even this explanation leads to deeper questions. Why such consistency in the markings? Why symbols that seem formalized, almost standardized, rather than casual? And why would some of these marks be hidden inside the sculptures, invisible to the human eye once the clay was fired? Some archaeologists propose that the marks might have held ritual significance, spiritual identifiers rather than practical ones. In this view, each sculpture was more than an object. It was a vessel, perhaps intended to house ancestral or divine presence. The hidden marks could represent consecrations, symbols meant not for human recognition, but for the spirits themselves. Others see them as early signs of proto-writing, an abstract system of identification that predates known scripts in West Africa. The Nok culture predates the famous Nsibidi symbols of southeastern Nigeria by over a millennium. Could these workshop marks represent a distant ancestral form of symbolic notation? An early experiment in recording information now lost to time? Still others, working at the edges of accepted theory, suggest something broader, that these marks hint at a level of organization and communication rarely attributed to ancient sub-Saharan societies of that era. The recurrence of identical patterns across distant sites might indicate a shared system, a network of artisans bound by ritual, trade, or even governance. Could the Nok have formed one of the earliest organized artistic guilds in human history? It's a question that lingers in academic circles, one made all the more tantalizing by how little we truly know about them. The Nok left no written records, no monumental architecture, no cities carved in stone. Their civilization seems to have been scattered, decentralized, yet united by a shared aesthetic and technical mastery that rivals any contemporaneous culture in the ancient world. And then, as suddenly as it appeared, the Nok culture vanished. By around 500 CE, their distinctive terracotta art ceased to be made. Villages were abandoned, trade routes shifted, and whatever social or spiritual system had sustained the Nok people faded into silence. Some believe climate change, cycles of drought, forced communities to migrate or collapse. Others suspect cultural assimilation, the merging of Nok descendants into emerging regional societies. But through it all, the terracotta figures remained, and with them, the marks. In museum displays, these subtle impressions are easy to overlook. But to those who study them closely, they are the fingerprints of thought. The faintest trace of an ancient logic that connected maker, material, and meaning. What were these artisans trying to communicate, if anything at all? Were the marks a simple tally, a craft signature, or something sacred? A language without words, known only to the hands that made them? Some modern researchers have attempted digital analysis, mapping the marks across hundreds of fragments to look for recurring patterns. Preliminary results suggest structured repetition, clusters that defy randomness. Yet without a key, without context, interpretation remains speculative. A few theorists have drawn parallels to distant cultures, noting how early workshop marks in Minoan Crete or the Indus Valley served dual roles, both practical and symbolic. Could there have been a shared human instinct to encode meaning in craft, a universal impulse that transcended continents? The Knock production marks remind us how fragile the record of human ingenuity can be. Clay endures, but memory does not. Each mark is a message from the deep past, but its words have faded, leaving only the rhythm of repetition, the whisper of a system that once made perfect sense to those who used it. Beneath the red Nigerian soil, thousands of fragments still wait to be unearthed. Perhaps among them lies a key, an unfinished sculpture, a buried kiln, a tool inscribed with a matching sign that could explain the mystery of these marks once and for all. Until then, we are left to wonder, were the Knock artisans simply marking their work, or were they marking something far greater, a bond between creator, spirit, and earth, written in clay and lost to time? From the red earth of ancient Nigeria, where artisans shaped spirit into clay, we move north, across the Sahara, following the Nile toward one of the world's most enduring mysteries. In the heart of Egypt, near the small town of Dendera, stands a temple dedicated to the goddess Hathor, a place of music, love, and rebirth. Yet inside its sacred halls, carved into the stone ceiling high above, lies something that seems to transcend both art and time itself: the astronomical ceiling of Dendera. Even today, walking beneath it feels like entering a cosmic chamber. The air is cool, still heavy with the scent of age. Torches, or now electric lights, reveal an intricate map of stars and deities, their forms swirling across the stone like constellations brought to life. At the center of it all lies the famous Dendera zodiac, a circular relief whose meaning has fascinated and confounded scholars for more than 2 centuries. The ceiling is not merely decoration. It is an ancient sky, frozen in limestone. Around its circle, the familiar symbols of the zodiac appear: Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Pisces, flanked by Egyptian gods steering boats through the heavens. The entire composition seems to merge 2 worlds, Greek astronomical imagery and Egyptian cosmology, fused into a single celestial vision. Most historians date this masterpiece to the late Ptolemaic period, around the 1st century BCE, an era when Greek and Egyptian ideas intermingled under the shadow of empire. The ceiling is believed to depict a map of the stars as they appeared at a particular moment in time, possibly the night of the temple's dedication or a ritual alignment with a known astronomical event. And yet, even with centuries of study, questions remain. What exactly were the ancient Egyptians trying to record here? The zodiac, as we know it, was a foreign import, introduced from Mesopotamia and later adopted by the Greeks. But the Egyptians had their own sophisticated system of celestial observation long before that, one based on decans, star clocks, and the yearly cycles of the Nile. So why does this ceiling, in a temple devoted to a goddess of fertility and joy, depict a sky more reminiscent of Babylon than of Thebes? Some researchers believe it represents the Egyptian reinterpretation of the zodiac, a merging of native and imported traditions. In this view, Dendera's ceiling was not just a star chart, but a theological statement, an image of cosmic order, linking Egyptian gods to the universal mechanisms of the heavens. But for others, the mystery runs deeper. When the Dendera zodiac was first studied in the early 19th century, after being removed and taken to France, where it remains in the Louvre, it sparked one of the greatest scholarly debates of its time. Early astronomers, using the star positions carved into the relief, attempted to date it. Some concluded that the sky it depicted matched not the 1st century BCE, but a far earlier epoch, as much as 12,000 years ago. If that were true, it would mean the Dendera ceiling recorded the sky of a civilization that predates all known Egyptian dynasties, a record carved by a people whose history has been erased. Of course, modern Egyptology has largely dismissed those early calculations, attributing the discrepancies to symbolic rather than literal representation. Yet, the allure of that possibility, that Dendera preserves a memory of a much older knowledge, continues to inspire speculation. Look closer, and the details only deepen the enigma. In the circular zodiac, the constellations are arranged around a central point, a celestial pole, with certain figures depicted in boats, others walking or standing, as if in motion through time. The precision of the composition suggests an understanding of celestial precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that alters the positions of stars over millennia. Could the builders of Dendera have known this? Could they have understood cycles that take thousands of years to complete? Most mainstream scholars argue no, that the Egyptians observed the heavens closely but interpreted their movements symbolically through myth rather than mathematics. The Dendera ceiling, they suggest, reflects ritual, not calculation. And yet, others wonder, how could a civilization so attuned to celestial rhythms, one that aligned its temples to solstices and its agriculture to star risings, not have noticed the slow drift of the heavens? Perhaps they didn't call it precession. Perhaps they simply recorded it, encoded in myth and symbol, in ways we have yet to recognize. There is also the question of the temple's alignment itself. Some studies suggest the Dendera complex was designed to mirror the movements of certain stars associated with Hathor and Osiris, deities of life, death, and rebirth. Could the ceiling then serve as a kind of stellar calendar, tracking not just time, but the cycles of cosmic regeneration? Others point to the combination of Egyptian and Greco-Babylonian motifs as evidence of lost continuity, that ancient cultures across continents shared a common astronomical heritage, fragments of which appear here in Dendera's mysterious design. But perhaps the real mystery lies not in what the ceiling shows, but in how it makes us feel. Standing beneath it, one senses a quiet intelligence, an order woven into stone. The ancient artists were not merely decorating, they were preserving something, a relationship between heaven and earth, between cycles above and life below. Whether as science, symbol, or sacred art, the Dendera ceiling reflects a vision of the universe as alive, conscious, interconnected, divine. And yet, for all our modern tools, we still cannot fully read it. Its meaning hovers between astronomy and theology, between measurable fact and metaphysical thought. The Dendera ceiling remains a map without a key, an ancient attempt to capture eternity, written in the language of the stars. Perhaps it is not meant to be solved, only witnessed. As light from the open temple doorway falls across the carvings, the ram of Aries, the bull of Taurus, the eternal circle of night, one is left with the same feeling those who carved it might have felt thousands of years ago: awe and the awareness of our smallness beneath an infinite sky. And as the camera drifts upward, tracing the figures that have watched the heavens for millennia, the question lingers: was the astronomical ceiling of Dendera merely a reflection of the stars, or a message from a time when humanity still remembered its place among them? From the meticulously carved heavens of Dendera, we shift our gaze to the land of monuments, where stone and sand have whispered secrets for millennia. Amid the vast necropolis of ancient Egypt, beyond the well-trodden monuments of Giza, stands a structure lesser known but steeped in mystery: the Black Pyramid of Amenemhat III at Dashur. Its dark, crumbling silhouette rises from the flat desert floor, a shadow of its former grandeur. Unlike the sunlit limestone of other pyramids, its outer casing has long since vanished, leaving behind the stark core blocks, partially collapsed corridors, and the faint echo of corridors designed to withstand eternity. Once encased in dark, polished stone, perhaps basalt or mud brick coated with black limestone, it earned its name for the deep, brooding color it may have once displayed. Amenemhat III, a pharaoh of the 12th dynasty, ruled during the apex of Egypt's Middle Kingdom, a time of prosperity, innovation, and monumental building. He is credited with multiple pyramids, including his more famous Hawara complex, yet the Black Pyramid predates and dominates much of Dashur. Archaeologists describe it as unusually fragile, riddled with structural weaknesses, and seemingly abandoned before it could reach its intended glory. The design itself raises questions. While most pyramids of the era were meant to endure for eternity, the Black Pyramid suffered repeated collapses, its corridors filled with sand and debris, its chambers compromised. Why would a civilization so skilled in stonework and geometry construct such a precarious monument? Was it a failure of engineering, a reflection of rushed ambition, or something more enigmatic? Its internal architecture is as perplexing as its exterior. The pyramid contains multiple burial chambers, passageways, and false doors, an elaborate labyrinth intended to confuse tomb robbers. Yet some of these corridors seem unnecessary, their angles and junctions deviating from the norms of Middle Kingdom pyramids. Could these deviations hold symbolic significance, a ritualistic path rather than purely functional? Then there is the question of the Black Pyramid's unusual location. Unlike Giza, which commands visibility across the Nile, or Dashur's Red Pyramid, which aligns along precise solar axes, the Black Pyramid is situated in a low-lying area prone to seasonal flooding. Archaeologists note evidence that water may have seeped into its substructures over centuries, contributing to its decay. Was this a deliberate choice, a deliberate proximity to the life-giving Nile, or an oversight that turned a tomb into a slow-motion collapse? Some Egyptologists propose that the pyramid's structural failures may have influenced the decision to shift royal burials to Hawara. Others suggest that Amenemhat III may have intended to use multiple pyramids simultaneously, a theory that speaks to ritual multiplicity. Perhaps each pyramid represented a different aspect of the king's journey into the afterlife. Yet, beyond structural oddities, the Black Pyramid carries an aura of obscured purpose. Some passages are unfinished, chambers partially built, and many of its walls bear no inscriptions, a stark contrast to the richly decorated tombs of earlier and later dynasties. Was the monument abandoned mid-construction, or was this a deliberate concealment designed to obscure its function from mortal eyes? A few fringe theories push the boundaries further. Some researchers suggest that the pyramid's black casing may have served a symbolic or astronomical purpose, representing the night sky or the primordial chaos from which the sun god emerged. Could the Black Pyramid, in this reading, have been a celestial marker as much as a tomb, a monument aligned with cycles of creation and rebirth rather than with earthly grandeur? Others point to accounts of underground chambers, now largely inaccessible, which might contain relics, texts, or ritual items that could illuminate the purpose of the pyramid. Were these subterranean networks simply burial chambers, or did they serve as conduits to the underworld, allowing the king's spirit to traverse realms unseen by living eyes? The Black Pyramid also challenges assumptions about the Middle Kingdom itself. Traditionally, scholars viewed this era as a period of consolidation, with stable engineering and methodical pyramid construction. Yet, here is a monument that seems almost experimental, defying conventional wisdom and hinting at unknown ambitions or forgotten rituals. Its very deterioration becomes part of the enigma. Unlike the smooth, enduring faces of Giza or the Red Pyramid, the Black Pyramid appears almost alive in its collapse, as if the desert itself conspired to reclaim it. Could the very choice of materials, the weak core, and the imperfect execution reflect an intentional transience, a philosophical statement about the impermanence of power and the inevitability of decay? Walking among its ruins, one senses the weight of centuries pressing down. The air is dry, heavy with sand and silence. The corridors echo faintly, carrying memories of laborers, priests, and royalty long gone. Even now, the pyramid seems to resist full understanding, offering glimpses but never complete clarity. Modern technology, radar imaging, 3D mapping, and archaeological excavation has revealed previously hidden chambers, but much remains unexplored. Some of these voids may contain nothing at all. Others might hide secrets that could reshape our understanding of Middle Kingdom mortuary practices. Standing at its base, the Black Pyramid presents a paradox, a tomb meant to immortalize a pharaoh, yet itself on the brink of oblivion. It embodies both human ambition and the mysterious forces of nature, bridging history and enigma in a way few other monuments can. And as the sun sets over the sands of Dashur, casting long shadows across fractured stone, one is left with the enduring question: was the Black Pyramid merely a failed architectural experiment, or a deliberate mystery crafted to challenge our understanding of life, death, and the path beyond? From the silent tombs of Egypt, we turn our gaze to the high deserts of North America, to a remote and rugged canyon in Nevada. Here, near the Humboldt River, lies a cavern shrouded in legend and dust, Lovelock Cave. For thousands of years, this natural chamber has held the echoes of human presence, the flicker of firelight, the scratch of tools, the silent testimony of those who lived on the edge of the unknown. The cave itself is unremarkable at first glance, a modest opening in basalt cliffs leading to a series of chambers that slope gently downward. But for archaeologists and historians, Lovelock Cave is a doorway into mystery. Over a century ago, excavations revealed not just ordinary tools, bones, and pottery, but fragments that hinted at something extraordinary. Skeletal remains, far larger than any known human. Reports from early 20th century archaeologists describe skeletons measuring well over 7 feet, some exceeding 8. These were not isolated finds. Dozens of similar remains were recorded, often buried alongside tools, woven mats, and the fabled duck decoys made from tule reeds that are now recognized as some of the oldest examples of North American craftsmanship. Skeptics argue that the measurements may have been exaggerated, or that natural factors, like mineral deposits or incomplete skeletal recovery, could have created illusions of height. Yet, the consistency of accounts, recorded by multiple independent excavators, suggests a phenomenon worth serious consideration. The Lovelock Cave artifacts themselves tell a story of sophistication. The duck decoys, for instance, are so expertly crafted that modern artists and hunters still study them to understand their lifelike qualities. Tools of flint and obsidian demonstrate not only utility, but careful design, indicating a culture deeply attuned to both environment and artistry. And then there are the human remains. Some of the larger skeletons show robust musculature and bone density, suggesting that these individuals were not merely abnormally tall, but physically extraordinary, capable perhaps of feats far beyond the average human of their era. Could these skeletons represent a distinct population, a genetic outlier among the prehistoric peoples of North America? Or do they hint at something far more elusive, a chapter of human history that has been lost to time? Lovelock Cave itself complicates interpretation. Carbon dating of materials places human occupation as early as 2,000 years ago, yet some remains suggest an even earlier presence. Seasonal flooding and shifting sands preserved some layers while disturbing others, creating a complex stratigraphy that challenges archaeologists to distinguish artifact from intrusion. Equally puzzling is the deliberate placement of grave goods. The large skeletons were often interred with finely crafted items, ceremonial mats, weapons, and personal adornments, suggesting reverence, status, or ritual practice. What society considered these individuals worthy of such careful burial? And why? Local Paiute oral tradition offers another layer of intrigue. Stories passed down for generations speak of Siteka, a people described as red-haired giants who once roamed the region. According to these narratives, the Siteka were feared, hunted, and eventually wiped out by the ancestors of today's inhabitants. While folklore is rarely literal history, it is striking that these oral accounts correspond in some ways with the unusual skeletal remains found within the cave. Theories abound, ranging from the plausible to the fantastical. Mainstream archaeology leans toward population variation, emphasizing diet, genetics, and environmental adaptation as explanations for unusual height. Yet, fringe interpretations propose more extraordinary possibilities. A lost race of giants, remnants of an ancient people whose knowledge and presence were systematically erased from the historical record. Even the site itself fuels speculation. Lovelock Cave is rich in guano and layers of mineral deposits, which have preserved delicate organic materials that normally decay over centuries. This natural preservation has enabled detailed study of artifacts and remains, but it also raises questions. If such exceptional preservation occurred here, might similar sites elsewhere hide evidence now lost to decay or destruction? Adding to the enigma is the discovery of red-haired strands associated with some skeletal remains. In a region where red hair is uncommon, this detail has sparked intense curiosity. Were these individuals genetically distinct, or could the pigmentation have arisen from environmental factors over time? The presence of red hair aligns with elements of the Siteka legend, further blurring the lines between documented archaeology and oral history. Yet for all the study, excavation, and debate, Lovelock Cave guards its secrets jealously. Some artifacts and remains were removed under circumstances that modern archaeologists would consider hasty or poorly documented, leaving gaps in the record that may never be reconstructed. Other materials remain buried, untouched in situ, hidden beneath layers of sediment and shadow. It is this combination of concrete evidence and unresolvable questions that makes Lovelock Cave so compelling. Here is a site that challenges assumptions about human variation, social complexity, and the breadth of prehistoric life in North America. It reminds us that the story of humanity is not linear, neat, or fully known. Walking through the cave today, one feels the weight of centuries pressing against the walls. Dust motes drift in slanting sunlight, and the distant drip of water echoes through empty chambers. The air is still, heavy with the memory of fire, life, and loss. Were these unusually large humans, if indeed they were distinct individuals, an isolated anomaly? Or were they part of a broader, now lost chapter of human history? Did their society extend far beyond this cave, leaving traces that vanished long ago under the sweep of time and sand? Some answers may lie forever beneath the desert, waiting for the careful eye, the patient hand, or the tool yet to be invented that can uncover what is hidden without disturbing it. And as we linger in the cool shadows of Lovelock Cave, one question resonates above all. Were the giants who once walked this land merely myth and exaggeration? Or does the cave preserve the faintest echoes of a reality we are only beginning to glimpse? From the rugged deserts of Nevada, where whispers of giants linger, we return once more to Egypt, a land where stone, sand, and silence have preserved mysteries for millennia. This time, our attention turns not to tombs or pyramids, but to the dimly lit chambers of an ancient temple, the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, yet again, this time under a different gaze. Here, high in the ceilings and deep in crypts, are carvings that have sparked one of the most peculiar debates in modern Egyptology, a debate that blends ingenuity, speculation, and the curious question: could the ancient Egyptians have understood a form of electric illumination? The focus is the Dendera lightbulb reliefs, located in the temple's crypt. At first glance, the carvings appear ordinary, elongated, bulb-like shapes suspended from a central rod, encasing coiled forms that some interpret as filaments. Each bulb is held aloft by figures of gods, snakes curling within, surrounded by other ritualistic imagery. The chamber itself is cloaked in shadow, the stone faintly warm beneath the hands of those who have walked its corridors. Mainstream scholarship identifies these carvings as symbolic representations, likely lotus flowers, snakes, or mythological motifs associated with creation and regeneration. The elongated forms in this reading are sacred symbols rather than depictions of practical objects. And yet, the shapes are undeniably suggestive. The bulbs resemble glass enclosures. The coiled snakes inside echo the spiral filaments of modern electrical lamps. Rods extend from the base, supporting the forms in a manner that recalls insulators. To a modern eye, trained by centuries of technology, the resemblance is uncanny. Some have proposed that these depictions reflect an actual, functional understanding of electricity, that the Egyptians had discovered a method of lighting dark interiors without flame. Supporters of this theory point to other anomalies within the temple, sealed chambers and hidden conduits, some of which could, they argue, serve as channels for conducting energy. Could the temple itself have been a functional laboratory, a place where mystical knowledge and practical science intertwined? Skeptics, of course, caution that resemblance does not equal reality. There is no archaeological evidence of wires, conductive materials, or energy sources in ancient Egypt capable of producing light. And yet, the mere possibility tantalizes. How could a civilization capable of precision engineering, massive stone transportation, and sophisticated metallurgy imagine or visualize such devices? The debate deepens when considering the context of Egyptian symbolism. Egyptian art was rarely literal. Gods, animals, and objects were imbued with layered meaning, reflecting philosophy, cosmology, and ritual rather than direct observation. Could the light bulbs instead represent the sun itself, or serpents of cosmic energy illuminating the divine order? Or, if the reliefs encode practical knowledge, could that knowledge have been lost intentionally, hidden within the sacred geometry of the temple? Adding intrigue is the mystery of the temple's subterranean crypts. These chambers are almost entirely enclosed, with ceilings low and walls thick. Natural light barely penetrates. In a space designed for ritual and meditation, some argue, practical lighting would have been invaluable. Could the carvings be a visual record of how light was generated and manipulated in otherwise inaccessible spaces? A few fringe theorists suggest that the coils inside the bulbs are akin to induction coils or plasma filaments, while the surrounding snakes symbolize the flow of energy, a concept that resonates with later understandings of electricity and magnetism. Others propose that the temple may have functioned as a kind of energy amplifier, a place where spiritual and material forces intersected. Yet the mystery persists precisely because tangible evidence is absent. No remnants of bulbs, wires, or power sources have survived, only stone and imagination. But could this absence itself be part of the enigma? In a civilization known for secrecy and ritual concealment, might knowledge have been deliberately obscured, left encoded in stone for those capable of interpretation? It is also worth noting that Egyptian engineers understood basic optics, heat, and metallurgy. They could fashion lenses, mirrors, and metal conductors. They lit temples and tombs with oil lamps, torches, and reflective surfaces. Could their imagination have extended further? a conceptual leap toward the invisible forces we now call electricity, expressed symbolically because its mechanism was beyond conventional tools of the age? Even the smallest details of the carvings provoke questions. The bulbs are often depicted in groups, their bases connected to horizontal rods, resembling circuits. The coils vary in shape and orientation, sometimes looped tightly, other times more relaxed. Are these simply artistic variations, or could they signify different forms of energy, intensity, or purpose? Standing in the crypt today, the carvings retain a subtle power. The shadows deepen around the walls, and one can almost imagine faint glimmers of light dancing across the stone. A temple once alive with ritual, mystery, and perhaps illumination in ways we can no longer understand. And so the question lingers. Did the ancient Egyptians create a literal, functional technology that has been lost to time? Or are we projecting modern understanding onto symbolic representations crafted to convey spiritual truths? Some answers may never come. The Dendera reliefs survive, but their potential knowledge, if indeed they encode it, remains locked in stone, waiting for a deciphering key we may never possess. And as the camera pans upward, tracing the curves of the bulbs against the crypt ceiling, one is left with a profound sense of wonder. Could the ancients have glimpsed a force we now take for granted, a hidden knowledge of light and energy, or do these carvings reflect a symbolic universe far more intricate and luminous than we can imagine? From the hidden chambers of Egypt, where stone may conceal forgotten knowledge, we travel across continents and centuries to South America, to the highlands of Peru. Here, among soaring peaks and windswept plateaus, lies a phenomenon both simple and baffling. Hundreds of perfectly cylindrical holes bored deep into the rock, scattered across the rugged terrain. These are the mysterious holes of Peru, precise, uniform, and inexplicably numerous. Many are arranged in patterns that suggest intention, lines, grids, or clusters, sometimes cut into the side of a cliff, other times carved into flat stone outcrops. Some penetrate only a few centimeters, while others dive several meters into solid rock, their interiors remarkably smooth. Archaeologists first documented these formations in the 20th century, yet their purpose remains uncertain. At first glance, they might appear as ordinary quarries, holes dug to extract stone or anchor posts. But the sheer uniformity and precision challenge conventional explanations. In many locations, the spacing between the holes is nearly identical, their diameters consistent, their depths methodically even, an exactness rarely achieved in hand-hewn rock. Some of the holes are arranged in geometric patterns, forming parallel lines that stretch across the stone like ancient rulers' guides. Others appear in clusters whose purpose is less obvious. Circles, squares, or seemingly random groupings that may conceal a logic lost to time. Mainstream theories suggest practical applications, agricultural, astronomical, or construction-related. Some researchers posit that they were intended as part of irrigation systems, designed to channel water in a region of steep terraces and sparse rainfall. Others see them as anchoring points for wooden structures, platforms, homes, or ritual spaces, now vanished without trace. Yet these explanations, while plausible in certain cases, fail to account for several anomalies. The precision of the drilling is remarkable, especially considering the tools thought to have been available to pre-Columbian civilizations. Some holes are carved into incredibly hard volcanic rock, with interiors so smooth that even modern hand tools would struggle to achieve similar results. How could this have been accomplished with the known technology of the time? Adding to the mystery is their placement. Many of the holes are located in seemingly inaccessible areas: steep cliff faces, high-altitude terraces, or remote canyon walls. Were they functional, or were they ceremonial, their purpose symbolic rather than practical? And if symbolic, What could these patterns represent? Calendars, constellations, or sacred geometry mapped onto the mountains themselves? Local folklore hints at a deeper significance. Indigenous traditions speak of ancient peoples with advanced knowledge of the land, capable of manipulating stone and terrain in ways that astonished their descendants. Some oral histories suggest ritual or spiritual purposes for the holes: offerings to the mountains, markers of sacred spaces, or conduits for connecting with unseen forces. Modern researchers have attempted to measure the holes with lasers and 3D mapping, confirming the remarkable consistency of size and spacing. In several sites, the rows of holes align with astronomical events, such as solstices or equinoxes, hinting at a potential observational purpose. Could these holes have functioned as an ancient calendar, a way to mark time through shadows, light, or water flow? Fringe theories, unsurprisingly, abound. Some suggest that the holes could have been used for unknown technological purposes, perhaps amplifying sound, channeling energy, or even serving as part of mechanisms now lost to history. Others speculate that their precision indicates knowledge of tools and techniques far beyond what is documented in Andean archaeology, evidence of a forgotten or hidden civilization. Interestingly, the holes are not isolated to one valley or site. They are found across multiple regions of Peru, from coastal deserts to highland terraces, in both urban and remote areas. Their distribution raises tantalizing questions. Were they the product of a single culture with shared knowledge, or did multiple civilizations independently develop similar practices? And if they were independent, what universal logic drove such exacting forms? Some researchers also note that many of the holes appear in stone types that resist erosion, volcanic and igneous rocks capable of withstanding centuries of exposure. The fact that these holes remain so sharply defined after hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, adds to the enigma, hinting at methods of construction both effective and carefully executed. Yet, despite centuries of study, no definitive answer has emerged. Excavations and surveys have revealed artifacts nearby, pottery shards, ceremonial items, and traces of human activity, but none that conclusively explain the hole's function. They remain as silent and immovable as the mountains themselves, offering clues but withholding certainty. Walking among them, one senses a deliberate order, a human presence encoded into the very rock. It is easy to imagine a long-vanished people working systematically across cliffs and terraces, driven by purposes we cannot fully comprehend, whether practical, ritualistic, or perhaps something in between. What was the intent behind this labor, the reasoning that guided hammer, chisel, and time? Were these holes functional, aiding in survival and infrastructure, or symbolic, representing knowledge and belief? Could they have served both purposes, blending the practical and the sacred into forms that endure millennia? Even today, the holes invite speculation and wonder. Modern climbers, archaeologists, and travelers trace their edges with fingers and instruments, yet the deeper logic remains elusive. In their silence lies both frustration and fascination, a testament to human creativity, determination, and the mysteries that persist in landscapes shaped by hands long gone. And as the Andean sun dips behind jagged peaks, casting long shadows across the terraced hills, one is left with the same quiet awe that the ancient builders may have intended. What purpose did these perfectly carved holes serve, and what knowledge, ritual, or technique lies hidden in the mountains, waiting for someone to finally understand? From the highlands of Peru, where stone holds the echoes of purposeful mystery, we journey northwest to the lush, rolling hills of County Meath, Ireland. Here, atop the fertile plains, stands a monument older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids of Giza, the Neolithic passage tomb of Newgrange. At first glance, Newgrange appears deceptively simple. A large, grass-covered mound, roughly 80 meters in diameter, rising gently from the earth like a hill shaped by human hands. Yet beneath this modest exterior lies a chamber of staggering precision, a tomb built over 5,000 years ago, during a time when written language had yet to emerge, and metallurgy was only in its infancy. The entrance is striking, a massive stone, adorned with swirling carvings and geometric patterns, leans slightly forward, marking the threshold between the mundane world and the realm of the sacred. Within, a narrow passageway leads to a cruciform chamber, whose walls are lined with carefully placed stones, some weighing several tons, assembled with exacting care to endure millennia. What makes Newgrange truly extraordinary, however, is not its size or artistry, but its relationship with light. For only a few minutes each year during the winter solstice, a shaft of sunlight penetrates the narrow entrance and floods the inner chamber, illuminating the central stone altar in a moment of breathtaking clarity. This phenomenon transforms the tomb from silent earthwork into a celestial observatory, linking human effort with the cycles of the sun. Archaeologists marvel at the precision required to achieve this effect. The builders had to align the passage to account for the tilt of the earth, the seasonal movement of the sun, and subtle variations in horizon line, all without instruments beyond the naked eye and careful observation over years, perhaps decades. Such knowledge implies a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, ritual, and architecture far beyond what one might expect from a Neolithic society. The carvings on the stones add another layer of mystery. Spirals, lozenges, chevrons, and arcs swirl across the surface, their meaning elusive. Were they symbolic of life and death, the cycles of the cosmos, or purely decorative? Some scholars suggest they may encode knowledge of celestial cycles, seasonal change, or even spiritual journeys, yet no definitive interpretation exists. The carvings speak in a language without words, a visual syntax that modern observers struggle to translate. Mainstream theory posits that Newgrange served as a communal tomb and ceremonial site, central to the social and spiritual life of its builders. Excavations reveal human remains, cremated bones, and offerings, evidence of long-term ritual use. But even within this framework, questions abound. Why invest so much effort in constructing a tomb that aligns precisely with a solar event only once per year? What did this brief illumination signify to those who built it? Speculative interpretations deepen the intrigue. Some suggest Newgrange was more than a tomb, perhaps a calendar, an astronomical observatory, or a temple that embodied the rhythms of the sun, moon, and stars. Others propose that it was a place of initiation or transformation, where the boundary between life and death was consciously blurred, and where sunlight served as a conduit for spiritual rebirth. The broader landscape only enhances the mystery. Newgrange is part of the Brú na Bóinne complex, surrounded by other passage tombs, ritual enclosures, and sacred sites. The sheer concentration of monuments implies a civilization with shared knowledge, social cohesion, and a deep awareness of their environment. How did these early people, without written records, organize, plan, and execute such monumental works across generations? Even the construction itself raises questions. The roof stones of the central chamber are corbelled, forming an arch that has remained intact for over 5,000 years. The passage is deliberately narrow, almost claustrophobic, suggesting intentional design for the movement of light or human passage. The mound contains layers of stone and earth carefully engineered for drainage and stability. Such sophistication implies not random labor, but careful planning, knowledge of structural physics, and perhaps ritualized construction practices. Fringe theories have suggested connections between Newgrange and distant civilizations, pointing to parallels in megalithic architecture around the world. Were there shared principles of geometry and astronomy encoded in stone across continents? Did the builders of Newgrange intuit concepts of celestial mechanics that only much later were formalized in other cultures? Local legend, too, adds a poetic dimension. Irish myth tells of the Dagda, the great god, and his son, Oengus, who is said to have entered the mound and experienced mystical visions. Such stories hint at a worldview where monuments were not just physical structures, but living symbols, gateways between the earthly and the divine. Walking into Newgrange today, one is struck by its quiet majesty. The mound sits unassumingly amid fields, yet it radiates a presence that transcends time. It embodies both human ingenuity and the mysteries of the natural world, a place where sun, stone, and spirit converge in fleeting brilliance. And as winter sunlight traces the path of the solstice into the chamber, illuminating the inner altar for only a few precious moments, one cannot help but wonder. What knowledge did the builders of Newgrange possess? What rituals and beliefs guided their hands? And how much of this ancient understanding remains hidden, buried beneath earth and myth, waiting for those willing to see beyond the stones? From the sacred mounds of Newgrange, where sunlight penetrates earth to illuminate hidden chambers, we journey south across the channel to the windswept coastline of Brittany. Here, scattered across fertile fields and heathland, stands a monument older than the memory of recorded history, the Carnac Stones. Stretching over 4 kilometers, the Carnac complex is one of the largest concentrations of megalithic stones in the world. Thousands of stones, menhirs, dolmens, and stone alignments rise from the earth in ordered lines and intricate patterns. Some reach 3 meters high, others lie fractured, fallen over centuries, yet the rhythm of their arrangement remains palpable. From a distance, the stones form linear corridors that seem to extend into eternity, guiding the eye along invisible paths across the Breton countryside. The scale alone is staggering. Estimates suggest that over 3,000 individual stones were erected during the Neolithic period, around 4,500 to 3,300 BCE. The sheer ambition of such construction implies social organization, long-term planning, and a sophisticated understanding of logistics. Yet the exact purpose of these arrangements remains elusive. Early observers speculated that the stones were markers of burial sites, ceremonial grounds, or even defensive structures. Dolmens, large table-like stones supported by vertical slabs, contain traces of human remains, lending some credence to a funerary interpretation. Yet the majority of the menhirs, particularly those arranged in long parallel lines, lack clear association with burial. Why then did Neolithic people undertake the painstaking effort to quarry, transport, and erect these monoliths in such precise formation? Some archaeologists suggest astronomical alignment as a key. Certain rows of stones seem to correspond with solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles. The Carnac alignments could have served as an enormous calendar, a way to mark the passage of time and seasonal cycles crucial for agricultural societies dependent on planting and harvest. Yet despite modern surveys, the patterns are not uniform. Some rows veer slightly, others curve, and clusters appear in no obvious order. Were these intentional deviations, perhaps reflecting ritual, topography, or lost knowledge? The construction itself presents a formidable puzzle. The stones, weighing several tons, were transported from quarries located up to several kilometers away. Without the wheel, without draft animals of significant size, and without metal tools, how did the builders manage such feats of engineering? Experimental archaeology has replicated basic transport techniques, yet the precision and scale of Carnac still impress and baffle. Local legend adds another layer to the enigma. Folklore speaks of giants who once roamed Brittany, petrified into stone as punishment or protection. While myth cannot be taken literally, it reflects the awe that such monuments inspired in subsequent generations, a recognition that the stones are far older and stranger than ordinary human constructs. Some speculative theories push further. Could the rows have been part of a larger system of energy or resonance? Certain researchers suggest that the stones, particularly in lines and circles, may have had acoustic properties, amplifying sound or serving as ritualistic instruments. Others propose that Carnac, like other megalithic sites, encodes geometric or mathematical knowledge lost to time, a Neolithic record of universal patterns or sacred principles. The arrangement of the stones also invites questions about perception and movement. Walking along the alignments, one experiences a subtle interplay of scale, distance, and perspective. Some researchers argue that this may have been intentional, the rows guiding processions, focusing attention on particular stones, or creating visual effects tied to ceremonies and spiritual experience. Could these alignments have been meant as pathways, not merely physical but spiritual, leading participants toward insight or transformation? Excavations reveal that the site evolved over centuries. Stones were erected in phases, with additions and modifications reflecting changing social, religious, or astronomical priorities. This continuity of construction underscores the enduring significance of the site, yet it complicates attempts to understand the original intent. Did early builders envision a single monumental design, or did the alignments accrue meaning gradually, layer upon layer, like sedimentary time frozen in stone? Despite centuries of study, many stones remain enigmatic. Some bear carvings, spirals, cup marks, or faint grooves, whose purpose remains unknown. Were these symbolic, functional, or decorative? Could they encode messages or rituals, comprehensible only to the Neolithic mind? And what of the sheer vastness of the site, stretching beyond the visible horizon in some directions, suggesting a scope of vision and ambition that challenges modern understanding? Walking among the Carnac Stones today, the wind carries the faint resonance of ancient footsteps, and the eye is drawn along the endless rows into the distance. There is a rhythm to the landscape, a cadence that seems almost deliberate, yet its meaning remains just out of reach. The stones are silent, yet their presence commands attention, inviting both contemplation and speculation. The Carnac complex reminds us that prehistoric humans were capable of extraordinary vision, ingenuity, and perhaps understanding of forces, natural, spiritual, or astronomical, that we can no longer fully grasp. Each monolith stands as a testament to labor, belief, and a desire to connect with something beyond the immediate world. And as the Atlantic mist swirls across the Breton fields, one cannot help but wonder, were the Carnac stones simply markers of time and ritual, or do they encode a deeper knowledge, a language of stone that speaks of human ambition, cosmic order, and mysteries we have yet to decipher? From the windswept stones of Brittany, where human hands left their mark in silent monuments, we travel across continents to the remote reaches of the Tarim Basin, deep within the Xinjiang region of China. Here, amid one of the driest deserts on Earth, lie secrets preserved by sand, time, and climate. The enigmatic Tarim Basin mummies. Discovered throughout the 20th century, these mummies are extraordinary, not just for their state of preservation, but for the questions they raise about human migration, cultural exchange, and the deep history of Eurasia. Some date back as far as 4,000 years, emerging from the shifting sands fully clothed in woolen garments, leather boots, and intricate textiles, evidence of a sophistication long before written records appeared in the region. What immediately captures the imagination is their striking appearance. Many of the mummies exhibit distinctly European features: long noses, high cheekbones, reddish or blonde hair, and tall, slender builds. These features, seemingly out of place in the heart of East Asia, have prompted generations of researchers to reconsider ancient human migration patterns. Who were these people, and how did they arrive in a desert thousands of kilometers from Europe? Beyond their appearance, the mummies reveal astonishing details of daily life. Clothing and textiles demonstrate weaving techniques of remarkable complexity, sometimes employing wool, linen, and even intricate tartan-like patterns. Leather shoes and fur hats suggest adaptation to harsh climates, while tools and remnants of baskets, mats, and ceremonial items indicate a society capable of sophisticated craftsmanship. Archaeologists have painstakingly analyzed the genetic material preserved in hair, teeth, and bone. Studies confirm that the Tarim mummies were part of a mixed population, with influences from both Western Eurasian and Central Asian lineages. Yet their presence, so far east in such an inhospitable environment, remains difficult to fully explain. Did these early people traverse vast distances along the Proto-Silk Road? Or were they part of a local culture that developed independently yet somehow retained connections to faraway lands? The desert itself adds to the intrigue. The Tarim Basin's hyper-arid conditions, extreme heat by day, frigid nights, and minimal rainfall, act as a natural preservative, keeping the mummies remarkably intact over millennia. Even delicate features like hair and skin remain identifiable. It is as if the desert itself conspired to hold on to these individuals, guarding their secrets from the passage of time. Some of the burials are equally mysterious. Many mummies are interred in simple, elongated graves, sometimes lined with mats or stones, yet others are accompanied by intricate textiles, wooden objects, or remnants of ritual offerings. The variance suggests differing social statuses or evolving burial traditions, yet no complete narrative emerges. What determined the placement, the goods, and the rituals? Were they guided by belief, necessity, or an unknown social code? Speculative theories abound, fueled by the mummies' unusual features and the sophistication of their material culture. Some researchers propose that they may represent a lost migration of Indo-European peoples into East Asia, carrying knowledge of metallurgy, weaving, and perhaps language far ahead of what was thought possible. Others suggest that they were part of a trading network spanning thousands of kilometers, moving along early Proto-Silk Road routes centuries before the famed Silk Road came into existence. The desert graves themselves seem to whisper unanswered questions. How did these communities sustain themselves in such a hostile environment? Evidence of domesticated animals, rudimentary irrigation, and grain storage hints at careful adaptation, yet the scale of survival in the Tarim Basin seems almost improbable. And why do some graves contain extraordinary textiles and goods, while others remain stark and utilitarian? Even the mummy's preservation prompts contemplation. Could these individuals have known techniques for burial that intentionally enhanced longevity? Or is their survival purely the product of nature, the desert's dry air and sand acting as an accidental vault? Either possibility underscores a delicate intersection of human ingenuity and environmental fortune. Beyond the science, there is a human story etched in these remains. Faces frozen in time hint at health, age, and even emotion. The hands, sometimes clasped in repose, sometimes stiff with rigor, suggest lives lived in isolation, in communities that balanced survival, labor, and ceremony in a harsh landscape. Each textile, each tool, each artifact is a message from the past, patiently waiting for interpretation. The Tarim mummies challenge our assumptions about ancient history. They reveal that Eurasia was connected, at least sporadically, in ways we are only beginning to trace. They hint at cultures capable of adaptation, innovation, and movement across vast, challenging terrain. And yet, many questions remain. How did these people arrive? What were their languages, their beliefs, their myths? Why do traces of them fade so abruptly, leaving tantalizing glimpses of their existence in desert graves? Standing over the dry earth of the Tarim Basin today, one can almost hear the wind whisper across the sand, carrying fragments of stories untold. The mummies remain silent, yet their presence is profound, a reminder of human resilience and mystery. And as the sun sinks behind distant dunes, casting long shadows across the ancient burial sites, one is left with a lingering question. Who were the people of the Tarim Basin, and what secrets do their well-preserved remains hold about the movements, knowledge, and interconnectedness of early civilizations? Secrets we have yet to fully understand? From the frozen sands of the Tarim Basin, where human remains whisper of long journeys and distant lands, we now turn to the deserts of North America, where one of the most perplexing artifacts of modern times was unearthed, the Coso Artifact. In 1961, near Olancha, California, a group of rock collectors discovered what appeared at first to be an ordinary geode, a rounded, rocky nodule embedded in the arid ground. But when the rock was cracked open, something extraordinary was revealed. Inside lay a small metallic object, roughly 2 inches in diameter, with a core resembling a spark plug, encased in layers of hardened clay and mineral deposits. It was an object of craftsmanship seemingly at odds with its surrounding geology and presumed age. Early tests suggested that the surrounding rock concretion had formed over thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of years. How could a manufactured metallic object, seemingly modern in design, end up encased in mineral formations typically associated with ancient geological processes? The Coso artifact became a subject of fascination, provoking questions that challenge conventional timelines. Mainstream assessments initially proposed that the object was a misidentified spark plug, perhaps from the 1920s or 1930s. Yet some researchers observed anomalies. The construction appeared unusual, the surrounding concretion suggested a far older origin, and the object's precise function remained unclear. Could it have been part of a primitive ignition system, or was it something else entirely, a tool or device whose design has no modern equivalent? The artifact itself is unassuming, yet it exudes an aura of mystery. Its metal core, encased in layers of mineralization, hints at exposure to intense heat and time. The layers are dense, seemingly uniform, and difficult to reproduce artificially. Some experiments attempted to recreate the concretion through chemical means, yet none fully matched the composition and structure of the mineral envelope found in the desert. How long would it take, under natural desert conditions, for such concretion to form? And could a human-made object withstand that passage of time without significant corrosion? Speculative interpretations abound. Some enthusiasts argue that the Coso artifact may be evidence of advanced technology lost to history, a relic from a forgotten civilization, or even proof of temporal anomalies. Could this object predate known manufacturing techniques, suggesting a level of sophistication in human craftsmanship far earlier than currently accepted? Or is it simply an anomalous but explainable artifact, misinterpreted through the lens of expectation and mystery? What complicates the story is the context of its discovery. The area around Olancha is rich in quartz, minerals, and volcanic formations. The concretion surrounding the artifact is not random. It formed in a specific environment over time. If the artifact had been recent, one would not expect the layers of hardened material to match the natural growth patterns seen in the surrounding desert. Does this point to extraordinary preservation, or does it hint at a misalignment between our assumptions about age, environment, and artifact formation? Some fringe researchers propose a more radical theory, that the Coso artifact is not merely anomalous in age, but in origin. Could it be the product of unknown ancient technology? Or, as more speculative theories suggest, might it be evidence of encounters with lost civilizations, perhaps even beyond the conventional scope of human history? Such ideas are controversial, yet they persist precisely because the artifact defies simple categorization. Even within mainstream science, the Coso artifact raises valuable questions about how we interpret geological and archaeological evidence. What constitutes a natural formation versus an artificial one? How do time, environment, and material interact to obscure or preserve human-made objects? And what does this tell us about the limits of our understanding of human ingenuity in the past? The artifact's small size belies the enormity of the questions it provokes. A single object, encased in layers of earth and mineral, challenges timelines, assumptions, and expectations. It serves as a reminder that history is not always linear, and that human curiosity has often left traces that may remain mysterious until examined with patience, imagination, and rigorous inquiry. Today, the original Coso artifact remains a point of debate, its exact nature contested, its implications unresolved. It is a reminder that even in the modern world, with technology and documentation, mysteries endure. Sometimes the desert itself preserves not just objects, but questions, challenges to our assumptions, invitations to look closer, to reconsider what is possible. Holding the object in one's mind, imagining its encasement in rock and mineral over countless years, it is impossible not to feel a sense of wonder. How many artifacts like this, lost to time and misinterpretation, lie buried beneath deserts, mountains, and sediment? What stories do they tell about human ingenuity, lost knowledge, or phenomena we have yet to explain? And as the sun sets behind the jagged peaks of the Coso Range, casting shadows over the sands that have held the artifact for so long, one question lingers in the quiet desert air. Was the Coso artifact simply a modern object enveloped by natural processes? Or is it a whisper from a forgotten past? A challenge to our understanding of human history? A mystery waiting to be fully uncovered? From the enigmatic artifact buried in California sands, we now turn our gaze northeast, into the vast canyons and high desert plateaus of the Four Corners region, where Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico converge. Here, centuries ago, a remarkable civilization thrived. The ancestral Puebloans, known to many as the Anasazi. Their presence is etched into the cliffs, canyon walls, and mesas, yet their disappearance remains one of North America's most enduring archaeological mysteries. The landscape is at once harsh and breathtaking. Towering cliffs of red and ochre, carved by wind and water, overlook deep valleys dotted with the remnants of stone dwellings. Pueblo villages cling to ledges and mesas, their walls built from sandstone and adobe, remarkably preserved in the dry desert air. Kivas, circular ceremonial chambers dug into the earth, hint at complex spiritual and social systems. Walkways, terraces, and irrigation channels suggest an intimate knowledge of the land, capable of sustaining communities for centuries. Archaeological evidence paints a vivid picture of ancestral Puebloan life. Between roughly 900 and 1300 CE, these communities flourished, constructing intricate cliff dwellings such as those at Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon. Sophisticated road networks, ceremonial structures, and storage facilities reveal a society that was not only technologically adept, but deeply organized and spiritually attuned. Pottery, tools, and woven textiles speak to daily life, commerce, and artistry. And yet, despite this apparent prosperity, by the late 13th century, many of these settlements were abruptly abandoned. Thousands of people vanished from the cliffside towns, leaving behind homes, tools, and personal belongings, but little indication of where they went or why. This sudden disappearance has puzzled historians and archaeologists for generations. Mainstream explanations point to environmental stressors. Evidence suggests prolonged droughts in the region, placing immense pressure on agriculture, water resources, and food security. Overpopulation and deforestation may have exacerbated these challenges, while social upheaval or conflict could have forced communities to relocate. While these factors are plausible, they do not entirely explain the scale, speed, or geographic coordination of the migrations. How did entire populations move across such a rugged landscape with such precision and cohesion? And why did so many leave behind valuables that would have been critical for survival? Further intrigue comes from the Anasazi's cultural and spiritual practices. The cliff dwellings themselves were not mere residences. Many were designed with astronomical precision, aligning with solstices and lunar cycles. Roads extended tens of kilometers, linking distant settlements and ceremonial centers. If communities possessed this level of knowledge, could their disappearance also have been influenced by factors beyond simple survival, perhaps spiritual, ritual, or even politically orchestrated migrations? Oral histories from modern Pueblo peoples offer another perspective. Some traditions speak of ancestors moving toward new lands, guided by visions or prophecy. Could these narratives preserve fragments of truth about voluntary relocation rather than catastrophic collapse? If so, how much of the migration was driven by choice, and how much by necessity imposed by environmental or social pressures? Speculative theories extend even further. Some fringe researchers suggest the possibility of unknown external forces influencing the Anasazi's movement, whether contact with other civilizations, advanced knowledge lost over time, or encounters with phenomena now relegated to myth. While there is no direct evidence for such claims, the suddenness and scale of abandonment leave ample room for imaginative inquiry. Archaeological layers reveal more puzzles. In certain sites, food stores remain largely untouched. Ceremonial items are left behind. Walls and structures are intact. It is as if people vanished overnight, without the time to fully dismantle or transport their belongings. How could a society with such expertise in logistics and engineering leave with such apparent haste, yet leave behind so much? Even their adaptations to the harsh landscape offer mysteries. Terraced fields, sophisticated irrigation, and stored maize show that the Anasazi had mastered survival in one of North America's most unforgiving environments. Yet these same technologies could not prevent the ultimate desertion of entire towns. Did unforeseen climate shifts render their careful planning inadequate, or did other, more subtle pressures, political, spiritual, or social, contribute to the exodus? Today, the ruins stand in quiet testimony. Sunlight slants across cliff faces, illuminating carved windows and doorways, while shadows creep through kivas and storage chambers. The wind whispers through abandoned streets and terraces, carrying the faint echoes of footsteps long gone. It is easy to imagine the lives once lived here, the hum of daily labor, the communal ceremonies, the laughter of children, and the silent resolve of those who walked toward uncertain horizons. The Anasazi Disappearance reminds us of the fragility and resilience of human civilization. It challenges our assumptions about survival, adaptation, and the forces, natural or otherwise, that can alter the course of entire communities. And yet, for all the study, excavation, and interpretation, many questions remain. As we look across the mesas and canyons today, one cannot help but wonder, where did the Anasazi go, and why did they leave behind the homes, tools, and culture they had so carefully built? Were they fleeing, migrating, or guided by knowledge we may never fully grasp? And what other stories lie hidden in the desert, waiting for those willing to trace the footprints of the vanished? From the vanished Anasazi of the American Southwest, we now journey across continents and millennia to the ancient city of Alexandria, Egypt. A city of sunlit shores, labyrinthine streets, and layers of history buried beneath the sands. Here, amidst the ruins of Hellenistic splendor and Roman occupation, archaeologists unearthed a discovery that has both fascinated and unnerved the modern world: the Black Sarcophagus of Alexandria. In 2018, a team working in the Western District of Alexandria uncovered a massive stone coffin hewn from solid black granite. Measuring over 2.5 meters in length and nearly 2 meters in height, the sarcophagus is carved with intricate designs, figures, inscriptions, and geometric motifs etched into its polished exterior. Its sheer size and weight make it one of the largest stone coffins ever discovered in Egypt, remarkable even in a land where monumental architecture is commonplace. What drew immediate attention, however, was its interior. When archaeologists cautiously opened the lid, they found it filled with a thick, reddish-brown liquid, nearly opaque and with a pungent odor that defied simple explanation. The liquid, which nearly filled the entire sarcophagus, preserved a sense of antiquity, yet its composition remains uncertain. Was it some form of embalming fluid, a ritual preservative, or something far stranger left behind for reasons we cannot yet comprehend? The sarcophagus itself is impressive not only for its size, but also for its craftsmanship. Carved from a single block of granite, the exterior bears no visible cracks or imperfections, a testament to the skill of ancient stoneworkers. Its lid, similarly flawless, is adorned with depictions of figures in classical Egyptian style, yet their poses and expressions carry an unusual intensity. Who might have been deemed worthy of such a burial, and what purpose did the liquid within serve? Mainstream Egyptologists propose that the sarcophagus may date to the Ptolemaic or early Roman period, roughly between 300 BCE and 30 BCE, a time when Alexandria was a thriving cosmopolitan hub. The designs suggest a blending of Egyptian and Hellenistic artistic conventions, reflecting the cultural fusion of the city. Yet the presence of the mysterious liquid has defied conventional explanation. No similar sarcophagi have been found containing such a substance, prompting questions about ritual, preservation, or even superstition. Scientific analysis has begun to shed light on the liquid, though answers remain incomplete. Preliminary tests indicate it is not simply water, nor any immediately recognizable embalming compound. Some chemical markers suggest decomposition products, yet the liquid appears to resist rapid breakdown, retaining its viscous, opaque character even after centuries. Could this substance have been deliberately concocted to preserve or transform the body, or might it be the result of a unique interaction between the granite, humidity, and organic matter over time? The size and isolation of the sarcophagus also provoke speculation. Why create such an enormous coffin? Who was so powerful, influential, or feared to merit such a tomb? Some suggest it may have belonged to a high-ranking Ptolemaic official, or perhaps even a member of the royal family. Yet there are no inscriptions naming the occupant. Without definitive identification, the sarcophagus stands as an enigmatic sentinel, guarding the identity of whoever rests within. Beyond the practical and historical questions, the find has inspired speculation that touches on legend and myth. Could the liquid itself have had symbolic significance? A ritual medium? An elixir of transformation? Or even a form of protective curse? Some propose that the coffin's massive weight and dense granite construction were designed not only to preserve, but to contain, to safeguard something deemed dangerous, sacred, or extraordinary. The sarcophagus also evokes comparisons with other enigmatic Egyptian burials. While monumental tombs are common, few contain liquids in such quantities. And while the Egyptians excelled at mummification and ritual preservation, this coffin's contents suggest an approach to death that is unusual, deliberate, and possibly experimental. What knowledge or ritual practice does this represent? Lost to time, or intentionally concealed? Local lore adds an additional layer of intrigue. Alexandria has long been associated with magic, alchemy, and hidden wisdom. The city was home to the legendary Library of Alexandria, a repository of human knowledge, much of which vanished in antiquity. Could the black sarcophagus reflect a fragment of this lost tradition, an experimental approach to death, preservation, or even transformation, inspired by wisdom that has not survived elsewhere? Standing before the sarcophagus today, one is struck by its presence. The black granite, smooth and imposing, seems to absorb light, casting long shadows across the dusty excavation site. The reddish liquid, mysterious and impenetrable, hints at secrets sealed for millennia. In its silence, it asks questions without answers, about mortality, ritual, knowledge, and human ambition. The Black Sarcophagus of Alexandria is more than a burial container. It is a nexus of curiosity, combining artistry, history, and unresolved mystery. It challenges our understanding of Egyptian burial practices, our assumptions about the limits of ancient technology, and our conception of what rituals and beliefs may have guided one of history's most storied civilizations. And as the Mediterranean sun dips below the horizon, casting the city in a golden glow, one cannot help but wonder, who lies within the black sarcophagus? And why was this coffin, this liquid, and this ritual preserved with such care and secrecy? What knowledge, belief, or power was sealed alongside the occupant? And what remains hidden beneath centuries of stone, waiting for discovery? From the enigmatic tomb in Alexandria, where stone and liquid guard secrets of mortality and ritual, we turn to another artifact that bridges history, mystery, and the human desire to conceal knowledge: the Copper Scroll. Unearthed in 1952 among the Dead Sea Scrolls in Cave 3 near Qumran, the Copper Scroll stands apart not only for its material, but for its message, written in etched letters upon thin sheets of pure copper. Unlike the more familiar Dead Sea Scrolls, inscribed on fragile parchment or papyrus, this scroll survives in a medium chosen for endurance, hinting at the value of its contents. The Copper Scroll does not tell religious narratives or recite scripture. Rather, it enumerates locations and quantities of treasure, hundreds of caches of gold, silver, and precious artifacts hidden across the hills and valleys of Judea. The specificity of the instructions is astonishing. Detailed measurements, precise distances, and directional markers that could guide a determined seeker to these hidden troves. At first glance, the scroll reads almost like a treasure map, yet it is cloaked in historical and linguistic complexity. Written in a dialect of Hebrew unique to its time, the text includes numerical notations and local toponyms, many of which have been lost to history. Researchers have struggled to correlate the named locations with modern geography, often finding that centuries of erosion, urban development, and shifting terrain obscure the terrain described. How much of this treasure, if any, remains? And how much of the scroll was intended as record, guide, or symbolic instruction? The scroll's composition itself adds intrigue. Copper, durable but difficult to inscribe, suggests intentionality. Etching words into metal would have required time, patience, and effort, far exceeding the labor needed to write on parchment. The creators evidently intended permanence, a message resistant to decay, fire, and theft. Could this choice reflect urgency, sacred purpose, or the knowledge that the locations described were of such importance they demanded a medium as enduring as the treasure itself? Scholars have debated the scroll's meaning for decades. Mainstream interpretations suggest that it records temple treasures hidden during the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE, intended to protect sacred wealth from invaders. This theory aligns with historical accounts of the destruction of the Second Temple. Yet it cannot fully explain the extraordinary specificity, the vast number of caches, or the sheer improbability that such treasures could remain undiscovered in such a turbulent region for nearly 2 millennia. The Copper Scroll also evokes more speculative ideas. Could some of the described treasures be symbolic rather than literal? Might the text encode ritual knowledge, spiritual wealth, or lost technology? Some researchers note that the scroll's structure, with its precise numbers and directions, almost resembles a coded system, hinting at a deeper level of meaning that has yet to be deciphered. If some locations are metaphorical, or if others have been altered deliberately to conceal true endpoints, The scroll becomes not just a list, but a riddle designed to challenge and preserve secrets through time. The challenges of decoding the scroll are compounded by geography and time. Even when a location seems identifiable, centuries of change, river courses shifting, valleys eroding, and settlements rising and falling, obscure landmarks. Modern explorers following the directions are often confronted with dead ends, confusing terrain, or areas rendered inaccessible. Were the treasures ever retrieved by the original custodians, or do they remain buried, waiting for the curious and persistent to uncover them? The scroll itself is a physical marvel. Rolled tightly into its copper sheath, it resisted corrosion, fire, and human handling, a testament to the ancient artisans' understanding of materials and preservation. Handling it today, one senses not only its durability, but its singular purpose: to record, to protect, and perhaps to challenge. Who created it? Were they priests, scribes, or guardians of the temple's wealth? And what urgency compelled them to inscribe metal rather than more conventional writing surfaces? Beyond its physical and linguistic mysteries, the copper scroll has inspired countless theories, some grounded, some more imaginative. Treasure hunters, historians, and archaeologists alike have speculated about Roman looting, secret orders, or hidden societies that may have recovered portions of the hoards. Others suggest that the scroll may connect with apocalyptic traditions or esoteric knowledge, embedding a spiritual or symbolic message within a practical guide. Perhaps most compelling is the interplay of permanence and impermanence that the scroll represents. Copper endures. The land changes. Words are etched in metal, yet centuries of sand, earthquakes, and human activity have altered the terrain it describes. The scroll is a bridge between eras, a snapshot of a moment in time frozen in metal, yet pointing to a reality that may no longer exist as intended. It invites us to imagine a world in which human beings, faced with crisis and upheaval, meticulously hid what they valued most, encoding instructions in ways meant to outlast both themselves and the centuries that would follow. Standing before the copper scroll in a museum display case, or reading its translations under careful light, one feels the tension of anticipation and mystery. It is at once a historical artifact, a map, and a puzzle, a testament to human ingenuity, foresight, and secrecy. Its words reach across 2,000 years, asking us to ponder not only the treasures it describes, but the people who created it, the turmoil of their world, and the knowledge they sought to preserve. And as the desert sun sets over the Judean hills outside Qumran, casting long shadows across the arid valleys, one cannot help but wonder, are the treasures of the copper scroll still hidden beneath the earth, or were they claimed long ago? Was the scroll merely a record of wealth, or a cipher for deeper knowledge lost to time? And what else might history conceal, waiting patiently beneath stone and sand for those willing to seek it? From the enigmatic copper scroll, etched in copper to withstand millennia, we turn to a discovery that transformed our understanding of ancient religious life and continues to provoke questions about history, culture, and secrecy: the Dead Sea Scrolls. Hidden for centuries in the limestone caves of Qumran, these fragile manuscripts have become symbols of both revelation and enduring mystery. The first of these scrolls were discovered in 1947 by a Bedouin shepherd who stumbled upon a dark cave containing earthen jars. Inside, wrapped carefully in linen, were scrolls of parchment and papyrus, their surfaces inscribed with ancient script. Over the following years, more caves yielded additional texts, totaling nearly 900 manuscripts, fragments, and scrolls, some more than 2,000 years old. The sheer scale of the find stunned archaeologists and scholars alike. At first glance, the Dead Sea Scrolls seem straightforward: religious texts, commentaries, and biblical manuscripts reflecting the beliefs and practices of Jewish sects during the Second Temple period. Yet, upon closer examination, They reveal an unexpected complexity. The scrolls include entire biblical books, previously unknown sectarian writings, and apocalyptic visions that speak to a worldview both familiar and profoundly strange. They challenge assumptions about the origins of sacred texts and the diversity of religious thought in ancient Judea. The Qumran caves themselves enhance the sense of mystery. Situated high above the northern shores of the Dead Sea, the location is both remote and rugged, seemingly chosen for seclusion. Were these caves selected purely for protection against invaders, or did the landscape itself hold spiritual significance for those who hid their writings here? The environment preserved the scrolls almost miraculously, the dry desert air acting as a natural archive that kept ink from fading and parchment from crumbling. Analysis of the scrolls raises further intrigue. Linguistic studies reveal multiple scribal hands, suggesting a collaborative or communal effort spanning decades. Variations in script, spelling, and phrasing indicate that these texts were copied, interpreted, and perhaps edited to reflect evolving religious and social norms. What was the purpose of this careful preservation? Were these communities seeking to maintain orthodoxy, protect knowledge, or encode secrets that only initiates could understand? Among the scrolls, some fragments defy conventional categorization. Texts with cryptic symbolism, obscure numerology, and elaborate apocalyptic imagery hint at esoteric teachings or hidden wisdom. Scholars debate their meaning. Were they meant to inspire, instruct, or conceal? And why were such texts deliberately hidden in caves rather than preserved in public repositories? The answer may lie in a combination of fear, reverence, and the human desire to protect what is most precious from the turbulence of the world outside. The discovery of the scrolls also raises profound questions about the origins of religious texts. Comparisons between biblical manuscripts and Qumran fragments reveal minor variations, suggesting that scriptural transmission was not static. Does this indicate a process of evolution in sacred texts, or does it reveal competing interpretations and sectarian diversity previously unknown to history? And if such variations existed, what other writings may have been lost, deliberately destroyed, or hidden away, waiting for discovery? Speculative theories abound. Some propose that the scrolls contain knowledge of esoteric practices, early messianic beliefs, or even coded information about astronomical cycles and sacred geography. Others suggest that the scrolls may hint at secret knowledge preserved for an elite few, a tradition of wisdom that extends beyond the confines of public religion. While evidence for such claims is inconclusive, the very possibility adds to the scrolls' enigmatic aura. The Dead Sea Scrolls' physical characteristics also inspire wonder. Ancient ink, crafted from soot and plant matter, has endured remarkably well. The meticulous handwriting, sometimes in tiny, precise letters, reflects painstaking labor and devotion. Each scroll represents not only textual knowledge, but also a tangible connection to the hands and minds of people who lived 2 millennia ago, who wrote, copied, and preserved in the hope that their words would survive. Even the circumstances of their discovery lend an air of drama. Hidden for centuries, undisturbed in limestone caves, they emerged only by chance. How many other treasures, knowledge, or writings lie buried in similar seclusion, awaiting rediscovery? How many texts were lost forever to decay, fire, or human destruction? Today, the scrolls continue to be studied, translated, and debated. They are a bridge between past and present, a window into a world simultaneously alien and familiar. They show human devotion, fear, and ingenuity, and yet their full significance remains just out of reach. Scholars, linguists, and archaeologists are still piecing together their context, attempting to reconstruct the lives, beliefs, and aspirations of the communities that produced them. Standing before a fragment, its faded letters faint against parchment, one feels the presence of history. The Dead Sea Scrolls are more than manuscripts. They are echoes of human thought, faith, and secrecy, preserved in isolation to speak across millennia. They remind us that the past is rarely fully accessible, that knowledge can be simultaneously revealed and concealed, and that human history is more intricate and mysterious than we often imagine. And as the desert sun dips behind the Qumran cliffs, casting the caves in shadow, one cannot help but wonder what truths remain hidden among the Dead Sea Scrolls. How much knowledge, insight, or warning has been lost to time? And what other secrets of faith, culture, or human ingenuity wait quietly in the caves, patiently awaiting discovery? From the hidden manuscripts of the Judean desert, where words were preserved in isolation to endure millennia, we journey now to another human endeavor shrouded in mystery and scale, the Longyou Grottoes. Nestled near the village of Xianbeikun, these vast, man-made caverns defy expectations, logic, and the conventional understanding of ancient engineering. For decades, they have intrigued scholars, archaeologists, and travelers alike, leaving more questions than answers in their echoing chambers. At first glance, the grottos are monumental, enormous caverns carved directly into the sandstone bedrock, each covering thousands of square meters. Ceilings are supported not by columns but seemingly by sheer precision in excavation, patterned with parallel grooves, ridges, and intricate carvings whose purpose remains uncertain. Walls rise straight and uniform, and floors are carefully leveled, reflecting meticulous planning and extraordinary craftsmanship. To witness these caverns is to confront an accomplishment that seems almost inconceivable given the tools presumed to be available at the time. The origin of the Longyou Grottoes remains elusive. Estimates suggest that they are over 2,000 years old, yet no historical records or texts mention their construction. There is no written acknowledgement of their creators, purpose, or the technology employed, a silence that amplifies the mystery. How could such monumental spaces be carved with such uniformity, yet leave no trace in the historical record? What knowledge did the builders possess that has since vanished? Inside the caverns, the scale is breathtaking. Some chambers soar over 30 meters high, with floor plans resembling intricate underground palaces. The ceiling's ridges, spaced with precise regularity, form geometric patterns that evoke both aesthetic intention and possible structural engineering. Echoes of footsteps linger for minutes, creating an eerie auditory landscape, as if the walls themselves remember those who once moved within them. Some chambers connect via tunnels, while others appear isolated, suggesting a design that balances utility, ceremony, or perhaps secrecy. Archaeologists note the technical difficulty of the work. The sandstone is tough, and the volume removed from each grotto is staggering. Thousands of cubic meters of stone displaced without signs of modern machinery. Tool marks are visible but minimal, leaving questions about the methods, manpower, and time required. Were these laborers highly organized, or did the builders possess technologies or techniques now lost to history? The purpose of the grottos invites further speculation. Some suggest they were intended for storage or refuge, though the sheer grandeur of certain chambers argues against purely utilitarian functions. Others propose ceremonial or ritual significance, a subterranean counterpart to the surface world, crafted to impress, intimidate, or inspire. The geometric carvings hint at symbolic meaning, yet no consensus exists regarding their interpretation. Were they cosmological markers, functional aids, or expressions of artistry beyond the conventional? What deepens the mystery is the abruptness of their abandonment. Over centuries, these grottos have been forgotten, rediscovered only in 1992 when local farmers stumbled upon one while digging a fish pond. The lack of historical documentation suggests that knowledge of their construction was deliberately lost or forgotten over time, yet the enduring precision and scale argue against a civilization lacking technical sophistication. How could such monumental labor disappear from memory? What forces, cultural, political, or environmental, could erase the memory of an achievement of this magnitude? Speculative theories abound. Some propose that the grottos reflect advanced engineering unknown to historians, perhaps evidence of early experimentation with subterranean architecture. Others suggest hidden purposes, repositories for knowledge, ceremonial sites, or even early defensive fortifications. Fringe theories even imagine connections with lost civilizations, travelers from distant lands, or knowledge now lost to time. While these remain conjectural, they underscore the challenge the grottos pose to our understanding of ancient human capabilities. Scientific investigations continue to yield fragments of insight. Analysis of the stone, the tool marks, and the layout suggests deliberate, methodical planning, requiring both organization and engineering skill. Yet questions remain about how thousands of tons of stone were excavated, moved, and arranged without leaving more evidence above ground. The scale and precision seem almost inconceivable for a society presumed to be operating with rudimentary tools, yet the results are indisputable. Vast, empty, and impossibly uniform chambers carved deep beneath the surface. Visiting the Longyou Grottoes today, one is struck by their quiet enormity. Sunlight rarely reaches the floors, leaving spaces in dim, diffuse light. The air is cool and still, thick with the weight of centuries. Echoes bounce from wall to wall, and every carved ridge or columnless hall whispers a silent story of human labor, ingenuity, and ambition. The grottos feel alive, yet mute, inviting contemplation of the people who envisioned and executed such an undertaking. The Longyou Grottoes are more than empty caverns. They are monuments to mystery, endurance, and human ambition. They challenge assumptions about the capabilities of ancient societies and demand humility in the face of ingenuity lost to time. Each chamber, ridge, and tunnel invites reflection on the limits of what we know and the vast expanse of what may remain hidden. And as the evening shadows lengthen across the hills of Zhejiang, one cannot help but wonder, who built the Longyou Grottoes, and for what purpose? What knowledge, labor, and vision were required to shape the rock into these monumental spaces? And what secrets remain sealed within their silent, echoing chambers, waiting for discovery? From the subterranean enigma of the Longyou Grottoes, we now turn to a small yet profoundly provocative artifact, the Fuente Magna Bowl. Unearthed near Lake Titicaca, close to the village of Fuente Magna in northern Bolivia, this humble vessel has captivated researchers, linguists, and archaeologists alike, not for its size, but for the secrets inscribed upon it, secrets that seem to defy conventional understanding of pre-Columbian history. The bowl itself is modest, carved from stone and roughly the size of a small mixing vessel. Its surface is smooth, the contours carefully shaped by human hands. But what draws immediate attention are the inscriptions lining its interior and exterior. Symbols etched with precision and intentionality, a script that appears both familiar and utterly foreign. Some characters resemble Sumerian cuneiform, others echo Proto-Sumerian pictographs. Yet the artifact was found thousands of miles from Mesopotamia and centuries earlier than any documented contact. Discovered in the early 1950s during an archaeological survey, the bowl was initially catalogued as a local artifact. Yet linguistic and epigraphic studies revealed its true mystery. If authentic, the inscriptions suggest a cultural or technological connection that transcends conventional timelines of human civilization. How could symbols so reminiscent of ancient Mesopotamian writing appear in the high Andes, seemingly isolated from the cradle of early civilization? Were these contacts lost to history? Or is this evidence of convergent cultural development, or something more extraordinary? The bowl itself is finely crafted, the stone carefully smoothed and polished. Its small size belies the care and skill that went into shaping it, suggesting that it was an object of significance, perhaps ceremonial, ritualistic, or symbolic. The dual inscriptions raise further questions. Were they intended as a record, a dedication, or a form of communication meant for those initiated into a particular knowledge system? And if so, what knowledge did they hope to preserve across time and distance? Mainstream scholars remain cautious. Many suggest that the resemblance to Sumerian writing could be coincidental, or the result of cultural borrowing through trade routes that remain speculative. Yet the detail and precision of the characters challenge simple dismissal. Linguists note that some of the inscriptions exhibit syntax and structural patterns consistent with Old World scripts, not mere imitation. Could this imply a level of contact or shared knowledge that predates known transoceanic travel? Or does it point to an as-yet undiscovered chapter in the history of human migration and interaction? The context of the bowl's discovery adds layers of intrigue. Fuente Magna is situated near ancient ceremonial sites around Lake Titicaca, a region long revered for its spiritual and agricultural significance. The high-altitude environment has preserved countless artifacts, yet few exhibit such clear connections to distant cultures. The bowl seems almost deliberately placed, a message or offering meant to survive across centuries, hidden in plain sight among the Andean highlands. Speculative interpretations abound. Some theorists propose that the Fuente Magna bowl is evidence of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, voyagers or merchants who bridged continents long before established history suggests. Others imagine more symbolic explanations. The inscriptions may encode spiritual knowledge, cosmological systems, or ritual practices transmitted through unknown channels. The artifact does not fit neatly into any known narrative, leaving its provenance and purpose tantalizingly open-ended. Analyses of the stone and carving techniques reveal sophisticated craftsmanship. The tools used to etch the symbols left subtle yet discernible marks, indicating patience, skill, and precision. This is not a hastily made object. It is a deliberate creation meant to endure. The durability of the bowl, combined with its enigmatic inscriptions, suggests a human intention to communicate across time, a desire to preserve knowledge, identity, or memory for generations that may never fully understand it. Yet many questions remain unanswered. Was the Fuente Magna bowl an isolated anomaly or part of a larger lost tradition? Are there other artifacts in the Andes or elsewhere that might corroborate its message? And if the inscriptions do connect to distant civilizations, what does this imply about the scope of human interaction and exploration in the ancient world? The bowl's mystery extends beyond its physical form. It challenges assumptions about human history, the diffusion of ideas, and the capacity for technological and cultural exchange. It reminds us that history is not always linear, that civilizations may have reached far beyond the limits imposed by surviving records, and that knowledge can travel across continents, sometimes leaving only a single, silent testament in stone. Holding the artifact in one's mind, imagining the hands that shaped it, the eyes that inscribed its symbols, and the world it once occupied, one senses the weight of history compressed into this small vessel. The Fuente Magna bowl is a bridge across time, geography, and understanding, a reminder that the past is vast, often hidden, and rarely fully revealed. And as the sun sets over the highlands surrounding Lake Titicaca, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain, one cannot help but wonder. Who crafted the Fuente Magna bowl, and why were these inscriptions placed so carefully upon its surface? What knowledge, connections, or intentions did it preserve? And how much of our shared human story remains hidden, waiting for the patient eye to uncover it? From the enigmatic Fuente Magna Bowl, with its cryptic inscriptions bridging worlds and time, we now turn to an artifact that confronts history itself, the Sumerian King List. Unearthed in the early 20th century from sites across modern-day Iraq, this ancient clay tablet reads like a chronicle of kings, dynasties, and a civilization's earliest memories. Yet as scholars have studied it, the King List has revealed a paradoxical blend of history and mystery that continues to fascinate and perplex. The tablet is unassuming at first glance, small, baked clay, etched with cuneiform script in neat rows. Yet, within its lines lies an extraordinary record, a sequential list of Sumerian rulers, their cities, and the lengths of their reigns. At the top of the list are kings said to have ruled before a great flood, some reigning tens of thousands of years. As one moves down the tablet, reigns shorten, becoming more realistic, blending into names and periods that correspond with archaeological and historical evidence. The juxtaposition of the fantastical and the factual immediately demands scrutiny. The Sumerian King List was more than a record of rulers. It was a story, a narrative of legitimacy, continuity, and divine order. It was likely used by scribes and rulers to assert authority, link dynasties, and preserve cultural memory. Yet within this practical purpose lies an enduring enigma. How do we reconcile the extraordinary lengths of early reigns with known historical realities? Were these exaggerations symbolic, cosmological, or reflections of lost knowledge? And if symbolic, what did they signify about time, kingship, and the Sumerian worldview? The locations named in the King List also raise intriguing questions. Early dynasties ruled cities now buried beneath centuries of sediment, their remains discovered through painstaking excavation. Yet the oldest cities listed, including Eridu and Bad Tibira, show evidence of complex urban organization long before the supposed reigns of the first kings. Archaeological layers hint at monumental structures, early forms of writing, and sophisticated irrigation systems. How much of the King List reflects historical reality, and how much was myth, preserved to anchor the society's origins in a narrative of divine or cosmic design? Scholars debate the origins of the long reigns. Some propose that extreme lifespans were a way to link human and divine authority, kings ruling in concert with gods, their longevity reflecting spiritual rather than biological truth. Others consider whether these numbers might encode lost knowledge, astronomical cycles, calendrical calculations, or symbolic numerology that modern observers struggle to interpret. Could the King List contain a hidden map of time, a record of events and epochs disguised as human rule? The manner in which the tablet was preserved adds further fascination. Clay, baked and inscribed with care, endures across millennia, much like the copper scroll or the Fuente Magna bowl. The meticulousness of the script, the uniformity of lines, and the care in recording names suggest a culture deeply invested in the continuity of memory. Yet the tablet is fragmentary. Sections are lost, some names obscured, some dynasties missing entirely. The King List invites speculation about what might have been recorded but is now lost. A vanished history, a story interrupted by time. Mainstream interpretations view the list as a blend of myth and history. The earliest kings as quasi-divine figures, later rulers more human and historically verifiable. But anomalies persist. Cities with extensive archaeological evidence do not always match the King List chronology. Some kings appear multiple times under different cities. Others reign improbably long or short spans. These irregularities suggest that the list is not purely a historical record, but a complex artifact, part legend, part administrative document, part cultural narrative, demanding interpretation from multiple angles. The king list has inspired speculation that borders on the extraordinary. Could it hint at advanced civilizations that existed in the distant past, their memory preserved only in fragmented texts? Some suggest that pre-flood rulers may represent knowledge or societies lost to cataclysmic events, encoded metaphorically as impossibly long reigns. While such ideas remain controversial, they underscore the difficulty of separating myth, memory, and history in the ancient world. Holding the king list in one's mind, one senses both precision and mystery. The tablet is a record of ambition, authority, and cultural memory, yet it also speaks of what is lost: dynasties buried, cities submerged by sand or flood, knowledge erased or forgotten. Its enduring questions mirror those posed by the Copper Scroll, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and other enigmatic artifacts we have explored. What does the past truly hold, and how much remains hidden beneath layers of interpretation, myth, and time? Even the practical implications are profound. The king list suggests that Sumerians possessed a consciousness of history and time remarkable for its era. They sought to connect human rule to cosmic or divine cycles, embedding lessons and legitimacy into generations of clay tablets. But the extraordinary reigns, the missing links, and the unexplained sequences remind us that human understanding of time, memory, and authority was far more complex than modern assumptions often allow. As we peer into the records etched in clay nearly 5 millennia ago, one cannot help but feel the weight of human ambition, curiosity, and reverence. The Sumerian king list is more than a historical document. It is a bridge across time, a repository of questions, and a challenge to our assumptions about civilization, chronology, and memory. And as the sun sets over the ancient plains of Sumer, bathing the ruins in golden light, one cannot help but wonder, who were the earliest kings, ruling for thousands of years before the flood? Were these records purely symbolic, or do they hint at a reality now lost to time? What truths, stories, and knowledge remain buried in the sands of Mesopotamia, waiting for those willing to read between the lines of history? From the ancient chronicles of Sumer, where kings ruled for millennia and time itself seemed malleable, we now turn to an artifact of a very different scale, yet equally staggering in human ambition: the Codex Gigas, often called the Devil's Bible. Housed today in the National Library of Sweden, in Stockholm, this colossal manuscript is renowned not merely for its size, but for the enigma that surrounds its creation, purpose, and the legend that has enveloped it for centuries. The Codex Gigas is enormous, nearly a meter tall, over half a meter wide when closed, and weighing more than 75 kilograms. Its pages, made from vellum, the skins of approximately 160 donkeys, are filled with dense Latin script interspersed with illustrations, incantations, and calendars. The sheer physicality of the book is overwhelming. One cannot handle it without recognizing the extraordinary effort required to produce it in an era before printing presses, typewriters, or industrial tools. Legend asserts that the Codex Gigas was created in a single night by a monk who made a pact with the devil to complete it, giving rise to the full-page illustration of a horned, dark figure that has captivated imaginations for centuries. While folklore embellishes its history, the manuscript's existence alone is enough to provoke wonder. How could a single scribe, using only quills and ink, have produced over 600 pages of meticulously uniform script, along with detailed illustrations, in what must have been an enormous span of labor and time? Historically, the manuscript is thought to have been created in the early 13th century in the Benedictine monastery of Podlajice in Bohemia. It contains a complete Latin Bible alongside other texts, historical chronicles, medical treatises, exorcisms, and magical formulas. This combination of sacred, secular, and occult knowledge reflects a medieval worldview in which the boundaries between science, spirituality, and superstition were porous and fluid. Yet the eclectic nature of its contents also raises questions. Why combine canonical scripture with necromantic texts and medical guides in a single volume? Was the Codex intended as an encyclopedia, a repository of knowledge, or as a symbolic work designed to impress and intimidate? The manuscript's construction is remarkable. The uniformity of the text suggests a single scribe, working with extraordinary discipline. Each page maintains precise margins, consistent lettering, and careful spacing. Scholars have calculated that producing such a work could have taken decades, a lifetime dedicated entirely to copying, illustrating, and compiling. How could such an undertaking have been planned, sustained, and executed in a medieval monastery without interruption or error? What motivated such devotion to a single project? And what message did the creator intend to leave for posterity? The Codex Gigas also contains anomalies that deepen its mystique. The pages are unusually durable, resistant to the ravages of time. Some suggest that the ink or vellum possesses unique qualities, though scientific analysis has yet to reveal anything extraordinary. The full-page illustration of the devil remains unparalleled in medieval manuscripts, haunting, unnerving, and deliberate in scale and composition. Why devote so much space to a single image, and what was its intended effect on the reader? Some speculate it functioned as a moral warning, a reflection on temptation and sin, or as a visual anchor for meditation or ritual. Legends aside, the manuscript continues to challenge historians and codicologists. There is no documentation of its commissioning, no recorded scribe, and no explanation for its extraordinary dimensions. Comparisons with other manuscripts from the period reveal that while ornate and complex volumes existed, none approach the scale, uniformity, or eccentric content of the Codex Gigas. It stands alone, a singular monument to human labor, creativity, and perhaps obsession. Speculative interpretations abound. Some posit that the Codex may have functioned as a compendium of esoteric knowledge, designed for use in healing, divination, or ritual practice. Others imagine that its enormous size was meant to convey authority, power, or divine inspiration. A few even suggest that it may encode information, numerological, symbolic, or otherwise, intended for a select few, hidden in plain sight within the Latin text. While definitive evidence remains elusive, the sheer scale and ambition of the work are undeniable. The Codex Gigas continues to inspire wonder not only for what it contains, but for what it represents: the limits of human endurance, patience, and ambition. It embodies a desire to preserve knowledge, to capture the sacred and the profane, and to leave a testament across centuries that is both awe-inspiring and enigmatic. Handling it, even virtually through photographs and scans, one senses the weight of centuries and the dedication of countless hours of labor condensed into a single monumental object. As one contemplates the Codex Gigas, it becomes clear that its mystery is as much about the human spirit as it is about legend or history. It challenges us to ask, what drives a single individual to commit decades to a solitary act of creation? What knowledge, belief, or ambition compelled such meticulous effort? And what does it reveal about a medieval worldview that sought to encompass the divine, the forbidden, and the practical in one colossal volume? And as the dim light of a Scandinavian winter filters across the manuscript's pages, casting shadows on its intricate script and haunting illustration, one cannot help but wonder, who truly created the Codex Gigas? And why did they devote so much of their life to its completion? Is the devil's image merely symbolic, or a reflection of deeper fears and beliefs embedded in the human psyche? And what other knowledge, hidden in plain sight within these ancient pages, remains undeciphered, awaiting discovery by those who dare to look beyond the legend? From the colossal testament of human labor in the Codex Gigas, we turn to an artifact that compresses the vastness of the cosmos into a small, shimmering disk. The Nebra Sky Disk. Unearthed in 1999 near the town of Nebra in Saxony-Anhalt, this Bronze Age artifact offers a window into ancient perceptions of the heavens, and yet it raises as many questions as it answers. The disk is modest in size, roughly 32 centimeters in diameter, made of bronze and inlaid with gold symbols. Upon its surface glimmer a crescent moon, a golden sun, and a cluster of dots interpreted as the Pleiades. Arcs along the edges are thought to represent the horizon or solstitial angles. At first glance, it appears to be a simple representation of the night sky, yet scientific analysis and archaeological context reveal a level of sophistication that challenges assumptions about Bronze Age societies. How could a people working without telescopes or modern mathematics achieve such accurate depictions of celestial events? The circumstances of the Nebra Sky Disk's discovery add intrigue. Found alongside swords, axes, and bronze ingots, it was buried deliberately, perhaps to conceal or protect it. Radiocarbon dating places the disk around 1600 BCE, situating it at the heart of European Bronze Age culture. Its craftsmanship is precise. The gold inlays are carefully hammered into grooves, and the arrangement of symbols aligns remarkably with solar and lunar cycles. The disk is more than art. It is a sophisticated astronomical instrument, a tool for tracking time, seasons, and possibly ritual or agricultural events. What makes the Nebra Sky Disk extraordinary is the level of knowledge it implies. Its depiction of solstices suggests that the creators could observe and record the movement of celestial bodies over decades. The disk may have been used to synchronize agricultural practices, to plan religious ceremonies, or even to unify dispersed communities through shared understanding of the heavens. Such precision implies not only careful observation, but also knowledge transmission across generations. How was this knowledge preserved, and what systems enabled its creation in an era we often consider technologically limited? The disk's imagery is rich with symbolism, yet tantalizingly ambiguous. Does the cluster of 7 stars merely represent the Pleiades, or does it hold ritual significance beyond astronomical observation? Are the arcs merely markers of solstitial points, or do they encode calendrical, cosmological, or even mystical information? Scholars have debated these questions for decades, yet no consensus fully explains its purpose. The disk's symbolism seems deliberate enough to suggest that its creators had a sophisticated worldview intertwining observation, ritual, and cosmology. Some researchers have proposed connections to contemporary or even distant cultures. Comparisons with Mesopotamian star charts, Near Eastern cosmology, and other Bronze Age artifacts hint at knowledge that may have traveled far across Europe and the Near East. Was there a network of information exchange, or does the disk represent an independent, highly advanced observation of the cosmos? If so, what other artifacts might remain undiscovered, silently preserving astronomical knowledge that predates recorded history? The Nebra Sky Disk also challenges modern assumptions about prehistoric society. Bronze Age Europe is often envisioned as fragmented, agrarian, and technologically rudimentary. Yet the disk suggests not only sophisticated observation and craftsmanship, but also an organized society capable of sustaining long-term studies of the heavens. It hints at leadership structures, social cooperation, and a worldview in which the celestial and terrestrial were intimately linked. What rituals, stories, or belief systems might have accompanied such a profound understanding of the sky? Scientific studies have confirmed that the disk is authentic and not a modern forgery, yet debates over its exact function and meaning continue. The alignment of its symbols with solar and lunar cycles is precise enough to suggest practical use, while the abstract nature of the design allows for symbolic interpretation. Perhaps it was both tool and talisman, bridging utility and ritual, science and spirituality. Could it have been used to coordinate festivals, to mark the passing of seasons, or to connect communities under a shared celestial framework? Holding the disk in one's mind, it becomes apparent that this small artifact encapsulates both the immensity of the cosmos and the depth of human ingenuity. Its creators were observers, mathematicians, and artists, working at the intersection of knowledge and wonder. It challenges modern assumptions about ancient societies, asking us to reconsider what Bronze Age communities were capable of understanding, observing, and recording. And as the twilight descends over the fields near Nebra, casting long shadows across ancient burial mounds and megaliths, one cannot help but wonder, who crafted the Nebra Sky Disk, and what did it mean to them? Was it a tool, a sacred object, or both? How much astronomical, ritual, or cultural knowledge has been lost to time, and what other artifacts lie hidden, awaiting discovery to reveal the sophistication of our ancestors' understanding of the heavens? From the celestial knowledge inscribed in the Nebra Sky Disk, we now descend into the dense tropical lowlands of Veracruz and Tabasco, Mexico, where monumental faces peer silently from the earth, carved from colossal blocks of stone. These are the Olmec Heads, a series of enigmatic sculptures that continue to captivate archaeologists, historians, and travelers alike. They are at once awe-inspiring in scale and confounding in origin, a testament to human ambition and mystery that challenges conventional narratives of the ancient Americas. The Olmec Heads are staggering in size. Some weigh over 20 tons, carved from single boulders of basalt transported from distant quarries, sometimes hundreds of kilometers away. Each head is rendered with distinctive facial features, full lips, broad noses, and stoic expressions, often wearing what appear to be helmets or ceremonial headgear. The precision of their carving, the sheer magnitude of labor required, and the skill in sculpting lifelike features from such hard stone speak to a sophisticated artistry and engineering capability that modern observers find difficult to reconcile with the presumed technological limitations of the era. Scholars place the Olmec civilization between roughly 1500 and 400 BCE, a period predating the classic Maya and Aztec civilizations. Despite this temporal placement, the heads hint at social organization, engineering expertise, and cultural expression that seem unexpectedly advanced. Each colossal face is unique, suggesting individualized commemoration, perhaps rulers, warriors, or spiritual figures. But beyond their immediate visual impact, the purpose and meaning of these heads remain uncertain. Were they political symbols, markers of authority, or objects of ritual veneration? And why was such monumental labor devoted to immortalizing these faces? Transporting the basalt boulders alone is a feat that inspires wonder. Geologists have traced some stones to distant quarries in the Tuxtla Mountains. The methods by which the Olmecs moved these massive blocks, without the wheel or draft animals known to them, remain speculative. Did they employ wooden rollers, rafts, or other now-lost technologies? And how did they coordinate the manpower required to carve, transport, and erect these statues across the region? The logistical challenges alone speak to an organized and resourceful society capable of executing projects on a scale often reserved for later civilizations. The aesthetic qualities of the heads invite further questions. The features are remarkably lifelike, capturing individual traits rather than abstract ideals. Helmets or headgear suggest ceremonial or martial significance, yet their precise symbolism remains opaque. Some researchers have noted resemblances between certain facial features and populations from distant regions, sparking debate over the origins, diversity, and movements of Mesoamerican peoples. Were these heads purely artistic, or did they encode social, spiritual, or even astronomical knowledge? Excavations around the heads reveal complex urban and ceremonial centers, such as San Lorenzo and La Venta, with pyramidal mounds, plazas, and drainage systems. The scale of these sites, combined with the labor invested in the colossal heads, indicates a civilization capable of centralized planning, long-term coordination, and symbolic expression on a monumental scale. Yet, curiously, the Olmec left no written records akin to the inscriptions of the Sumerians or the glyphs of later Mesoamerican cultures. How did they transmit knowledge, maintain social cohesion, and preserve cultural memory without a written system? Speculative theories abound. Some have suggested that the heads might represent visitors from distant lands or early interactions with populations now separated by geography and time. Others interpret them as divine or semi-divine rulers, immortalized in stone to embody the authority and stability of Olmec society. Fringe hypotheses even imagine connections with lost civilizations or transoceanic contact, though mainstream scholarship remains cautious. What is undeniable is the combination of artistry, engineering, and symbolic intent, which hints at a culture of considerable sophistication and vision. The Olmec Heads, like the Nebra Sky Disk before them, challenge assumptions about the capabilities of ancient societies. They compel us to reconsider what is possible in the absence of metal tools, the wheel, or other technologies taken for granted in later civilizations. They demonstrate that human ingenuity, organization, and symbolic expression can transcend what we often imagine as technological limitations. Each face carved into basalt is both a literal and metaphorical monument, a reminder of human aspiration frozen in stone, enduring across millennia. Standing before the Olmec Heads, one senses a palpable presence, the weight of stone, the labor of countless hands, and the gaze of figures who lived thousands of years ago. Their silence is profound, yet it speaks volumes about authority, identity, and the human desire to be remembered. The heads are not merely sculptures, they are enduring enigmas, a dialogue between the past and the present that continues to provoke questions without definitive answers. And as the humid air of the Veracruz lowlands filters through the jungle canopy, casting shifting shadows across the colossal faces, one cannot help but wonder, who were the figures immortalized in these monumental heads? What social, spiritual, or political forces drove the Olmec to carve and transport such massive stones across the landscape? And what other secrets of this enigmatic civilization remain hidden, waiting beneath the earth or in the memories of time, silently defying discovery? From the silent, monumental faces of the Olmec Heads, we journey across continents and time to a site where stone itself seems to defy expectation. The Kailasa Temple at Ellora. Carved directly into the vertical face of a basalt cliff, this extraordinary complex of rock-cut architecture is more than a temple. It is a monument to human ingenuity, vision, and audacity that continues to astound historians, archaeologists, and travelers alike. The Kailasa Temple, part of the Ellora Caves, is unique in its conception and execution. Unlike traditional construction, it was excavated downward from a single massive rock outcrop, a technique known as monolithic rock-cut architecture. The temple spans over 2,000 square meters, its sculpted walls and ceilings adorned with intricate reliefs depicting deities, mythological narratives, and scenes from Hindu epics. Its grandeur is breathtaking. Massive pillars rise with elegant symmetry, staircases twist with precision, and courtyards open into intricately carved sanctuaries. One cannot approach it without a sense of wonder at the vision required to conceive, plan, and execute such an immense project entirely from a single rock. Archaeologists date the temple to the 8th century CE, built under the patronage of the Rashtrakuta dynasty. The level of detail, from the delicate carvings of elephants and lions to the sprawling reliefs of Hindu mythology, demonstrates not only artistic mastery, but also a sophisticated understanding of structural engineering. The Kailasa Temple seems to embody a paradox, the raw permanence of rock juxtaposed with the intricacy and fluidity of sculpted forms. How could artisans of that era, armed with only chisels, hammers, and sheer labor, carve such a complex structure with such precision, particularly given that any mistake could ruin the entire edifice? The methodology of construction remains a subject of debate. Scholars generally agree that the temple was carved from top to bottom, yet the logistics of removing millions of tons of basalt, ensuring structural stability, and maintaining precise measurements without modern surveying tools is staggering. Did the builders employ lost techniques now forgotten, or did human ingenuity simply rise to meet the monumental challenge? Could planning and execution on such a scale suggest an advanced understanding of geometry, load distribution, and project management that rivaled anything in the contemporary world? Equally compelling is the symbolic and spiritual dimension of the temple. The Kailasa Temple is dedicated to Lord Shiva, and its design embodies cosmological concepts, from the sculpted depictions of celestial beings to the alignment of shrines and sanctuaries. The temple is a physical manifestation of divine principles, a sacred mountain carved from stone mirroring Mount Kailash itself. Yet the temple also contains layers of syncretism, with reliefs depicting Jain and Buddhist motifs in the surrounding Ellora complex. Was the choice of imagery purely religious, or did it encode a broader message about the universality of human spiritual experience? The temple's construction has inspired speculation beyond conventional archaeology. Some theorists propose that such precision and scale would have required technologies or organizational methods not commonly attributed to the period. Others focus on the symbolic audacity. To carve an entire temple downward into solid rock is, in itself, a defiance of natural limits, a testament to human aspiration and determination. Was this an act of devotion, a demonstration of political authority, or both? And what cultural and intellectual frameworks enabled artisans and planners to conceptualize and execute such a feat? The Kailasa Temple continues to challenge assumptions about ancient engineering and architectural capabilities. Its monolithic nature, combined with the intricacy of its reliefs, suggests a society that could integrate artistic vision, religious devotion, and practical engineering in a single, unified endeavor. Each pillar, each courtyard, and each relief reflects countless hours of labor and planning, yet they coalesce seamlessly into a cohesive whole. It is both a human achievement and a reminder of the enduring mystery of ancient ambition. Standing before the temple, one is struck by scale and precision, but also by its timelessness. The basalt walls whisper of centuries of devotion, of artisans working tirelessly under the sun and in shadow, guided by vision, faith, and perhaps knowledge now partially lost. Like the Olmec Heads or the Nebra Sky Disk, the Kailasa Temple is more than an artifact. It is a dialogue across time, a bridge connecting us to the minds, hands, and hearts of a civilization whose full story remains elusive. And as the afternoon light casts intricate shadows across carved reliefs of gods, dancers, and mythic beasts, one cannot help but wonder, how did the builders of the Kailasa Temple conceive and execute such a monumental vision entirely from living rock? What knowledge, organization, and devotion made it possible? And how many secrets of technique, planning, and symbolism remain hidden within these stone walls, waiting for those with patience and insight to uncover them? Narration continues. The carved stone sanctuaries of Kailasa fade behind as the camera sweeps across oceans, tracing the curve of the South Pacific until it reaches the mist-shrouded mountains of New Zealand's South Island. From the monumental devotion of human hands in India, we now move to a landscape where the natural world itself seems imbued with mystery. The rugged, glacial peaks of Mount Owen, a remote and wind-swept massif in New Zealand's Kahurangi National Park, Here, amid scree slopes and alpine valleys, an unusual artifact was discovered in the late 1980s. A set of massive, claw-like bones, now known as the Mount Owen Claw. This enigmatic find has stirred both scientific interest and speculation, challenging our understanding of the fauna that once roamed New Zealand. The claw itself is striking. At nearly 20 centimeters in length, with a curved, tapering form and serrated edges, it is unlike anything known from living species in New Zealand. Initial reports describe its surface as weathered but unmistakably preserved, with microfractures indicating both age and exposure to environmental stress. Its sheer size immediately raises questions. To what creature could such a structure have belonged? And how did it survive undisturbed for what may have been thousands of years in this isolated alpine environment? New Zealand is a land of unique evolutionary trajectories. Its isolation fostered the development of remarkable species, many flightless and arboreal, from the moa to giant eagles. Yet the Mount Owen claw seems to defy easy categorization. Paleontologists have struggled to match it with known Pleistocene or Holocene fauna. Could it have belonged to a species of moa or another giant bird now extinct, but with talons far larger and more formidable than any previously documented? Or does it hint at a lineage of apex predators that left only fragmentary traces in the fossil record? The context of the discovery deepens the intrigue. The claw was found embedded in sediment that suggests glacial or periglacial activity, indicating that it could be thousands of years old. No other skeletal remains were immediately associated with it, leaving researchers with a tantalizing puzzle. A single artifact, a fragment of a life form, isolated in both time and space. How does one reconstruct an entire ecosystem, a creature's size, behavior, and ecological niche from a solitary claw? And why, in such a relatively well-studied region, had it not been noticed before? Mainstream interpretations suggest that the claw might belong to a known species, a moa, or perhaps a giant Haast's eagle. Yet both identifications present challenges. The dimensions are anomalous, the curvature sharper than typical for predatory raptors, and the robustness beyond the reach of even the largest moa claws. Could it represent an evolutionary outlier, an individual of exceptional size, or a species entirely unrecorded by science? These possibilities raise compelling questions about gaps in the fossil record and the hidden diversity of New Zealand's ancient fauna. Speculative theories have emerged alongside conventional paleontology. Some suggest the claw could be evidence of a previously unknown giant predator, a creature capable of hunting moa or other large birds. Others ponder whether it could be a vestige of megafauna that survived longer than assumed, perhaps into the era of early human settlement. While such ideas remain controversial, they reflect the enduring mystery embedded in the landscape. Mount Owen, remote and unforgiving, has preserved fragments of a natural history that we may only be beginning to comprehend. The claw's discovery also invites reflection on human interaction with New Zealand's wilderness. Maori oral traditions describe encounters with large, formidable birds and creatures, though whether these tales preserve memory of actual species or mythologized interpretations is unclear. Could oral histories contain echoes of species that coexisted with humans but left only sparse physical evidence? How often might local legends encode fragments of ecological truth awaiting rediscovery by science? Preservation in this harsh alpine environment has been crucial. The combination of cold temperatures, limited microbial activity, and isolation likely slowed decomposition, allowing delicate keratin and bone structures to endure far longer than in temperate lowlands. Yet even here, exposure to wind, frost, and seasonal cycles would gradually degrade the specimen. That a claw of this size and detail remains intact suggests both chance and an extraordinary preservation environment. How many other specimens, Equally remarkable lie hidden beneath the ice, scree, or forest floor, their existence unknown to us. The Mount Owen Claw, like other anomalies we have explored, from the Olmec Heads to the Nebra Sky Disk, challenges assumptions about what is possible in both the natural and human worlds. It reminds us that isolated discoveries can radically shift understanding, revealing ecosystems, species, and behaviors previously considered impossible. It is a testament to the patience of researchers, the persistence of nature, and the vastness of history still buried in remote corners of the globe. Standing before the rugged peaks of Mount Owen in imagination, one senses the scale and mystery of the world preserved in stone, bone, and sediment. The claw is more than a fossil. It is a symbol of discovery's frontier, of questions that endure longer than answers, and of the deep, untamed history of a land still yielding its secrets. And as the alpine winds whip across the summit ridges, carrying echoes of millennia past, one cannot help but wonder. What creature bore this formidable claw, and what role did it play in New Zealand's ancient ecosystems? Could it hint at species lost to time, surviving beyond the reach of human memory or scientific record? And what other remnants of life, hidden in the mountains and valleys, remain undiscovered, silently awaiting the curiosity and patience of those willing to seek them? From the isolated peaks of New Zealand, with their enigmatic fossilized traces of ancient life, we move now to a vast, sun-scorched plateau in western Bolivia, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the earth itself seems inscribed with secrets, the Sajama Lines. Carved into the desert floor, these linear markings extend for hundreds of kilometers, forming a network of straight paths, geometric shapes, and intricate patterns that are visible only from the air. They are a puzzle of scale and intention, a testament to human endeavor whose purpose remains tantalizingly elusive. The Sajama Lines are deceptively simple, grooves scratched into the soil, sometimes only a few centimeters deep, yet stretching over remarkable distances. Some paths run perfectly straight for tens of kilometers, intersecting with others at sharp angles, creating a lattice across the plateau. Their total length is estimated to exceed 20,000 kilometers, weaving through plains, hills, and even small rivers. Despite their apparent simplicity, the effort required to create and maintain these lines is immense. Without modern tools or surveying equipment, how did the creators achieve such precision over such vast distances? Dating the lines has proven challenging. Some researchers suggest they were created over multiple generations, beginning perhaps as early as 1000 CE, associated with indigenous Aymara communities. Others argue for an even older origin, potentially connecting them to pre-Columbian ritual practices. The lines themselves show remarkable resilience against the desert's seasonal extremes, preserved by the dry climate and sparse vegetation. Yet they raise profound questions. Were these lines purely practical, symbolic, or both? And what drove communities to etch such vast patterns into the landscape, visible only when viewed from above? Theories abound, though none are definitive. Some archaeologists suggest the lines functioned as ceremonial pathways, guiding processions to sacred sites or connecting settlements in a spiritual landscape. Others propose that the lines served as territorial markers, delineating communal or agricultural boundaries across the high plains. Yet these explanations, while plausible, leave much unexplained. The astonishing straightness of the lines over uneven terrain, their intersections forming geometric configurations, and the sheer ambition required to create a network spanning tens of kilometers. How did these ancient peoples conceptualize and coordinate such an undertaking? And what cognitive frameworks allowed them to translate vision into lines etched in the earth? Speculative interpretations have captured the public imagination. Some suggest astronomical alignments, proposing that certain lines correspond with solstices, equinoxes, or prominent stars, creating a celestial map on the ground. Others imagine that the lines formed a symbolic landscape, a terrestrial reflection of cosmological principles connecting humans to the heavens. While definitive evidence remains scarce, the patterns invite contemplation of intent, knowledge, and cultural perspective. Did the creators see their world in a way we cannot fully comprehend, translating sacred order into terrestrial geometry? The Sajama Lines are not solitary. They exist alongside a landscape rich in pre-Columbian artifacts, burial mounds, ceremonial platforms, and scattered stone tools. This context hints at a deeply structured society, one in which ritual, mobility, and observation of the natural and celestial world were intertwined. Yet, unlike written records or monumental architecture, these linear markings communicate without words, their meaning encoded in orientation, length, and intersection. What information did these lines convey, and to whom were they addressed? Were they intended for the eyes of participants walking along them, or for some higher perspective, spiritual, cosmic, or symbolic, beyond immediate human comprehension? The scale of the lines challenges assumptions about the capabilities of ancient communities. Creating paths extending tens of kilometers, straight and true, would require planning, measurement, and coordinated labor. Yet there is no evidence of tools or technologies that might explain the extraordinary precision. Did the creators employ methods lost to history, or did human ingenuity suffice to achieve what we might now consider impossible? And what does this suggest about our understanding of prehistoric engineering, social organization, and cultural expression? Walking along the Sajama Lines, even for a short stretch, one is struck by a sense of orientation and disorientation simultaneously. The grooves are subtle, the landscape vast, and the horizon endless. There is a meditative quality to their scale and repetition, a reminder of the human desire to impose order upon the natural world, to leave a lasting imprint, and to communicate across generations. Like the Nebra Sky Disk, the Olmec Heads, or the Kailasa Temple, these markings invite us to wonder at the sophistication of societies whose traces survive in unexpected forms. And as the sun sets over the Altiplano, casting long shadows that make the lines momentarily visible to the eye, one cannot help but wonder, who carved the Sajama Lines, and for what purpose? Did they map the heavens, connect sacred sites, or communicate knowledge lost to time? How many other linear networks lie hidden across the world, etched into plains, deserts, and forests, awaiting discovery? And what do these markings reveal about the ingenuity, spirituality, and ambition of ancient civilizations whose vision extended far beyond the limits of our modern imagination?